All right, the time is finally here to actually discuss a topic that I've weirdly avoided despite how excited I am for it, and that's Mists of Pandaria. Now, look, I just want to get it out there. It's one of those things where I have definitely been critical of content creators in the past, going, oh, here we go. And when Cataclysm came out, I was like, they're all going to pretend they're excited for Cataclysm. It's a dog shit expansion. And now we just get all the content creators yelling out to get on the train because they need to keep their channel's income flowing. And we're all going to get gaslit into how good this game is and we should totally play it. And just on the Cataclysm front, I mean, we'll do a big Cataclysm review eventually. I won't do that now. But I mean, I'll just say that I'll eat dirt on that one because, you know, I remember having North on the show saying, like, I couldn't tell if he was being tongue-in-cheek or not. He was like, no, unironically, Kata is fantastic. And I was like, oh, you're just saying that. I had a brilliant time with Kata. I've really, really enjoyed Kata Classic. And I'm, you know, previewing what I'll say on the Kata review. I will give it a far more glowing review than I had expected going into it. I've had a blast. I've had an absolute blast. And in my personal opinion, contrary to a lot of the thoughts out there, I think a lot of people shitting on Kata aren't even playing Kata Classic and didn't really give it a go on the subreddit. A lot of people still dunk on it. But in my personal opinion, Kata has been sort of redeemed by the Classic Resurrection. And I think a lot of people have probably had to revisit how they truly feel about that expansion. But moving on to Miss, this isn't fake excitement from a content creator. Oh, Josh is just pumping us up because he wants us all to listen to the podcast for the next fucking year or so. No. I don't give a fuck if you don't listen to the podcast. My point is, I've basically spent the last 4 months of Kata in MOP preparation, and I'm really, really excited for it because I didn't play MOP. Kata, I at least played. So I sort of knew what to expect, even though I quit after like the first 6 weeks. But MOP, I have no idea what's going on with this expansion, and I've deliberately stayed away from it. The beta, I've barely touched. I've done like, you know, I go to the first area, the very first quest, and I've killed like 500 mobs on different classes just to get a feel for rotations. And I've not spoiled anything for myself. I did like an hour or so of time walking leveling, or whatever they call it in retail, where you get to pick what expansion you level in. And yeah, I took a class to like MOP and went, oh, I'll check out MOP. But I only played for like an hour, so I still barely know what's beyond the first zone or the first fucking 30 quests. I'm really, really excited to try it out. And, you know, as a PvP player, I'm really excited for what is called, you know, the greatest fucking PvP expansion of all time. But anyway, what I'm trying to say is I'm genuinely excited, guys, and what you're hearing is not bullshit. I can't believe I waited this long to talk about this on the show, but it seemed about right given that I truly think MOP is like 8 weeks away. You know, we're 3 weeks into the beta now, and, you know, the Kata beta lasted 10 weeks. Sorry, it was 10 weeks from the launch of Kata beta to Kata launch, not pre-patch, actual Kata launch, a 10-week gap in time. We're now just on 3 weeks through the MOP beta. I think we're 7 or 8 weeks away from fucking MOP launch. I think the pre-patch is coming in like 5 weeks. It's all going to happen very quickly, so we might as well talk about it now. Let me introduce my guests who have been so kindly waiting for me to get through that monologue, and I am welcoming back, so happy to have him here, Double Zug. How are you, mate?
Pretty good, pretty good. Happy to be back. Thanks for re-inviting me.
Mate, a pleasure. I wish I was joking when I said this. I was literally just with you in the shower, in that I was playing your latest video with me as I showered 15 minutes ago in preparation for this podcast. And I was watching you the tier list makers, I think it was. So, or no, watching someone, you were reviewing tier lists, which was a good fun watch. We'll talk about that in a second. But we're also welcoming back, it's been fucking donkey's years. You'll all remember him from, I think TBC was his time to shine on the show, or was it Wrath? Naismith, mate, how are you?
I'm great. That was definitely back in TBC. That was oh god, that was a long time ago.
Doesn't
I
it?
guess,
Doesn't it feel it? It feels like a lifetime ago.
God, it really does, because that was back when we were just. I remember
Babies.
yes, we were watching BlizzCon, hoping for an announcement about TBC Classic,
Yes.
and that was when I met. Was it Bob and
Yeah.
all the other people? Yeah, that was
God, 4 years ago or
holy.
whatever. Oh my God.
God
How
damn it.
how scary is it? Just on that, a real quick side note. How fucking scary is it when you sit down and realize, no shit, like coming up in 4 months is the 6-year mark since WoW Classic launched.
I mean, it's a terrifying thought, but then you start thinking, oh, wait, I'm farther away from college now than I was when I was born. And, things are pretty bad.
It's all going by too quickly. And we also welcome back a regular contributor to the show, but it's been a little bit between drinks, but always happy to have him back. Wacklow, mate, how are you? You there, Wacklow? You on mute. What do you got? He might have stepped away for 2 seconds. That's all right. We'll come back to him when he gets off the shitter. All right, guys, look, what I want to do from this podcast is... Oh, you're here? No, you're having mic troubles. That's all right. We'll get back to you in a second once you sort that out, mate. Guys, what I wanted out of this podcast is I like I usually do, I want to somewhat avoid simply doing what every other content creator does. I don't like doubling up on content, if that makes sense. I've always been this way with Countdown, and it's like, Countdown's not necessarily that it's got to stand out from the crowd, but it needs its own unique voice and give people something that they're not hearing elsewhere. I don't necessarily want to do, the tier list. I don't want to do the, complete generic content overview of this is what's coming and blah blah blah. There's a bunch of places to get all that information, and I've been absorbing it like a sponge. And again, like, I'll get him on the show too. I just talked to him about an hour ago. He unfortunately couldn't make it tonight because he had something on, but we'll get him back on here soon. Scotty J, I'll just have to shout out his content. Like, obviously Double Zug's here. He's doing the amazing healing content that you all need to go and watch his shit on YouTube for all your healing related stuff on MOP. But also, Scotty's just been smashing it on the general stuff, on everything you'd want covered basically content wise in MOP. Fucking, it's funny because I was just saying to Patricia last night, I was like, I'll say one more time how far Scotty has come content wise, and like how much his channel has grown into a fucking great channel. I really enjoy it. I like Double. I'm not just saying it because Double's here. Scotty and Doubles, I get the notification when they make a new video. I watch it straight away. It's appointment television, and it's for a reason, because they're fucking good. They know what they're talking about. And I'll tell Scotty this when he comes on the show again. I told him last time I was on the show, and I'll tell him again because he's gotten even better than he was last time. And it's just like, mate, if you're going to play MOP and you're not watching Scotty, you're doing yourself a disservice. So fucking go and do it. This is not a plug. He's not going to fucking pay me anything for this. I'm just saying I like good content, so go out and get it. But anyway, moving on from that. I want to have a bit of fun with this one and talk about mostly the classes and just sort of talk about more the fun angle. We will get to the other content. This is not just classes. I do want to talk about, PvP in MOP. I do want to talk about raiding in MOP. I do want to talk about professions in MOP. But I want to mostly focus on the classes. That will be the bulk of the content you're about to get from the angle of fun. I want to talk to you guys about what's changed and what's fun. Everyone can look up the tier list about fucking what's good. Oh my God, go and play a Destro Warlock. Oh my God, go and play a fucking, if you're PvPing, go and play an Arms Warrior. Oh, Frost Mage, they slap. Blah, 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 blah. You can go look all that shit up. What you can't look up as much is what feels good. And that's what we're going to cover now and talk about what we love and maybe even dislike a little bit about some of the class changes that came with MOP. So, guys, we'll get into it and devise our own kind of tier list here for funsies. And just before we get into, before I bring up the first class, I will just do a generic MOP question to get you guys started and get the juices flowing. And I'll start with you, Double Zug, and just say, mate, look, you and I have talked about MOP obviously on the healers just earlier on the show a few weeks ago. But if I were to ask you, how excited are you for MOP? Because I'm fucking excited, but I don't know what I'm getting into. And look, there's a lot of listeners out there who might be envious of my position going, oh my God, I wish I was going in blind. How cool that must be. But like, how excited are you to play Double even though you know the content? Am I justified in my very strong excitement for this expansion, or am I going to be let down?
I think you're absolutely justified. I think especially like you said you liked Cataclysm and you were pleasantly surprised by Cataclysm.
Yeah.
I think Mop is just it's Cataclysm but like cranked to 11
Mm.
and you just have a lot more content because Cataclysm is a little bit content dry. Um, Raiding, like there's not as many bosses, but also just outside of raiding, like the world stuff, PvP, I think PvPs, there's a lot more to do in MoP. So basically every aspect of the game is just like kind of better. So yeah, I'm definitely super excited. I'm stoked for like every healer class, and then I'm also like, oh, but I want to play Warlock, I want to play Warrior. I'm like, it's you're kind of in a bad position with MoP because so many of the specs are so fun that like
Yeah.
whatever you pick, you're gonna be pleasantly surprised by how fun it is, but you're also gonna have that FOMO because like every other spec is also really fun and has like really broken stuff they can do. So
Mate,
yeah, I think you're definitely justified being excited.
I know exactly what you're talking about because look, the game hasn't even launched yet, and I've already experienced it because, like I said, I've been testing for hours and hours and hours how all the specs feel on the beta, and it's been a really relatively tough selection process where I can already tell like I know MOP is generally viewed as a relatively alt unfriendly expansion. Now we'll get to chatter on that on things Blizzard might be doing behind the scenes to already alter MOP to make it more alt friendly. But even if it was an alt friendly expansion, like there's only so much time going around. At the end of the day, you can't play them all. You kind of have to pick, I don't know, 2 or 3 specs to really lean into hard if you've got the time. And so I'll get to it eventually. I have eventually whittled down to 2 or 3 choices that I feel quite strongly about, but I will be missing the ones that I'm not playing because I feel like there's a lot of good shit in MOP. So I'm glad you brought that up. But Naismith, I'll throw it to you, mate, and just say, look, piggybacking off of what Double has said, I'll ask you the same question. Is my blind hype justified, or do you think there's a chance I walk into MOP and go like, oh, is that it?
I don't think you're going to say, "Oh, is that it?" There's a lot of shit to do in MoP. It is packed with stuff to do if you want to. For God's sake, they give archaeology a lot of stuff to do in MoP, and that's something that I don't think anyone does. Specifically, as Double Zug said, and I've watched a couple of his videos, and I think he is amazing. He's right. Almost every class feels almost overpowered at some point, even if you're not actually doing that much damage. Like, some of the talents you get are just fucking fun. Like, it's entertaining to use it, especially in PvP. You can fuck with people really well in MoP.
And I think just on that note, real quick, we'll get to the PvP chat eventually, but turns out eventually is the word of the day today. But like, I feel like everyone is overpowered, and this is not the expansion. We talk about, MOP's the PvP balance bonanza. It's great. But I really feel like you could almost, close your eyes and throw the arrow at the board and hit a class that you could fuck with people with in MOP. Is that right, Naismith?
Oh, it's very much right. Like, this is getting a little too early for this, but like for Death Knights, they get the AoE Death Grip. It's the most fun thing I've ever had in World of Warcraft, is just randomly using that in PvP and or just during raids. It's wonderful. You can find little things like that all the time in MoP.
Very good. Wacklow, mic back and working, mate?
Hopefully. Can you hear me all
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. Got you now, mate. We'll do the intro real quick. Thank you so much for coming back. And look, it's been a long time between drinks, but always a pleasure to have you here. And we'll have to weave in... Well, we've got Naismith here, so we'll definitely have to weave in some sports chat at some point.
Yeah,
Oh,
for sure.
come
I'm
on.
pretty heartbroken. I was hoping the Knicks would sweep just for the... I don't even
Oh,
like
I
the Knicks that
know.
much, just for the humiliation for the
Yeah.
city of Boston.
The fuck
Do we-
Boston thing is real.
Do we really need to talk about how the Chiefs fucked it all up in the
Oh,
Super Bowl again?
One of the greatest days of my life. And one of the worst of yours, I'm sure, Naismith.
No, losing to Tom Brady, that was the worst one as a Chiefs fan. God, fuck that asshole.
I won't go back to the Super Bowl much. All I'll say it was a hell of a fucking trouncing to watch. But on the NBA, Wacklow, just real quick. I mean, yeah, as people will have picked up, Game 3 in fucking New York was tonight, and Boston, I think I think expectedly won. You know, I don't think they were going to go down 3-0. They're too good of a fucking outfit for that. But, I mean, the Knicks, just the highway robbery of stealing 2 in Boston is almost being undersold. Like, I actually think even being down 2-0 as Boston is still heavily down in the series. And obviously they won today, so it's 2-1. So they're even more heavily back in the series. But like, I was like, if I was a Boston fan, which I'm not, I wouldn't be shitting bricks. Like, be concerned, but don't be shitting bricks. But like, I just can't get over how they let like a fucking Ocean's 11 heist, let the Knicks come in and do that. It was wild.
Yeah, they lost both by 1 point. And the Knicks have like a great big 2, but they're just like not built for the playoffs yet. They don't have a playoff bench. And the fact that probably the most talented team in the league can come in and do this, it was just like shades of the Heat series from a couple years back.
It kills me as a Lakers fan because like all the Lakers fans talk about is how we need a deeper bench, and then the Knicks come out and go like, turns out you can do it basically with 5 people.
Yeah, I mean, like I'm also a Lakers fan. If the Lakers had kept AD, they probably would have won that series. They had no chance of like,
yeah, we'll move on, but like the AD Luka chat is a deeper one for another day. And yeah, I agree. We probably could have beaten Minnesota with AD given the need for a big in that particular series. I don't think that necessarily had the AD trade not gone through that we would have gone on to win the title. But anyway,
no,
no, fuck no. But anyway, all right, back to the mop. Thank you very much, everyone, for giving me my requisite 2 minutes of sports chat while I've got a couple of sports fans here. Back to mop. Double Zug's eyes are going to glaze over. Double, I presume I shouldn't presume. Are you a sports fan or not?
Not really. Like my family didn't really watch it when I was a kid. But I have like a lot of friends that are into it, so I'm very used to the sort of like nodding along, you know.
Right. I'm
mentioning the 2 sports names that I know anything about.
Very good. I'm sitting here with a broken finger and a torn rotator cuff from a rugby game 2 weeks ago, so I'm still very much into sports, sadly to the detriment of my body. But anyway, let's go back to mop. So, Wacklow, what I was saying is, I'll ask you the same question I was asking the guys. Is my hype justified, and will I be well served by diving into mop blind?
I don't know. I've never played a mop P server, and I have not gotten into beta still, but from everything I can tell, mop sort of continues the trend. I think Wrath is a pretty bad expansion, all things said. It's very different from vanilla, and it doesn't have like all the things that make vanilla and to some extent TBC great, and it also doesn't have the polish that makes retail, great for what it is. And I think Kata took the Wrath model and made it not quite so painful, and Pandaria takes the Kata model and improves on it again. I'm very surprised, honestly, that you enjoyed Kata as much as you did, because from my perspective, Kata had Arena, which was a lot of fun, and raids that were a lot of fun, and almost nothing else. So unless you're on like Grobulus, I don't know what else there is to do.
Guess who's on Grobulus, though? No, but I mean, to be fair, yeah, you've got the world PvP on Grobulus, but I mean, nobody's out there doing it. It's, once that all happens during the leveling phase. Once everyone gets to cap, like the world PvP dies down drastically. Like, don't get fooled into thinking that the 50-50 balance on Grobulus leads to these epic world PvP battles out there. It's, I mean, people are fair in their criticisms of modern, games in that once you get the insta telly to the dungeon, obviously you're in a bit more of a lobby style game and people sit in cities and do their thing. Now, in saying that, I'm still a fan of the telly to the dungeon, and I love the fucking RFD tool, RDF tool, I should say. But that's actually part of the reason why I've really enjoyed Kata. And we can talk about the irony of the guy that started the fucking love letter to WoW Classic now being fully entrenched in a semi-modern game and loving RDF and insta-tellies to dungeons and fucking lobby style and all that shit. But I just do. And it's part of the reason that I turned away from SOD after, over the last few months and really hit into Kata, is that there's just too many fucking instances. I'm sorry to say now, like we were joking about before I started recording, how far removed we are from 2019 and Classic and all getting caught up in the fucking return to the real old school style gaming. Nowadays, I really am, I'm sorry to say, just someone who sits down and goes, right, I know I can play for the next 90 minutes, and here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to queue up for a dungeon. I'm going to get into that dungeon in the next 3 to 5 minutes. I'm going to play that dungeon for 20 minutes, and then fuck it. You know what? I might be able to do 2 more. So I'm getting content done. It's wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, do the thing, and actually play the game. I'm not sitting around in town spamming text channels, begging people to group with me, wondering why it takes so long to get a group. And then I know people think people think I'm hyperbolic with how long it takes to get a group in Classic. And I get that, like, it's not an eternity, but I said this on the podcast recently. In SOD, I just really got sick of, from the moment you type that first thing in text going, looking for more, UBRS, from that second on, you're not starting the dungeon for 15 minutes. And some people would say, well, that's just like a queue if you're a DPS in Qatar. Well, I play healer, so fucking whatever. But I got sick of getting to dungeons, walking there and then waiting for you're always the first one there. And then, it takes 10 more minutes for everyone to join. And then they all get there and some dickhead says, oh, I haven't repaired. And then you wait another 5 minutes. And now it's been 20 minutes since you logged on and you're starting the dungeon. And then you take obviously 45 minutes to do one dungeon in Classic. And then if you want to do one more, well, brother, that's going to take a long time to put together again. I just got sick of it. And I was like, I want to turn the game on and do the fucking thing. And if that makes me a bad person, and that's what ruined MMOs, you're part of the problem, Josh, then fucking so be it. It's how I like to game. If I want a BG, if I want to do a dungeon, I'm in it. Almost instantly. Here, wait 3 to 5 minutes and you're fucking in there. That's great. That's why I loved Qatar. And that's why I'm now turning away from... that's why I've also expressed my love for the RDF feature. That I'm just saying, in modern times, if you don't want some form of automated group formation, you're a fucking idiot, in my opinion. Sorry to hurt people's feelings. But anyway, that's another story for another day. But Wacklow, the other part of the reason that I loved Qatar is the BGs. Like, you talk about the world PvP on Grobulus, but I mean, I thought Qatar PvP was fantastic. I really enjoyed BGs. I've loved them. I've played a lot of them, and they're great. And now people say that MOP's that and even better in terms of BGs because I don't really arena much. Fucking sign me up. That's why I'm pumped as well.
Interesting. Yeah, I like the idea of RBGs, but it turned out to be, an arena to some extent too, turned out to be dead, or if not dead, like such a small community. It's like you win 5 games and suddenly you're playing against streamers who have been PvP streamers for 15 years.
I must admit, I haven't done any RBGs in Qatar. Is that what it turned into?
RBGs, honestly, the queues are so long and you really need an organized group. I haven't done them since like phase 2.
Okay. Double, is that? Do you have any experience with rated battlegrounds? Has that been what you know of them in Qatar?
I haven't done RBGs in Classic. I did a little bit of it like in the old days, but I definitely think that Blizzard has been prioritizing PvE. I think that's pretty obvious. I think it's a much bigger audience, but I do think there's some things that they've done that have made it a lot harder for the PvP community to thrive. I think I watched like a random Hydra Mist video about this, about the Classic PvP stuff. So I definitely think there's some things they could do, like making easier access to the PvP gear, having the PvP gear be better than the PvE gear, so that PvP players don't have to raid to do competitive PvP. But I think like for the more casual player, like if you just want to go in BGs and like have fun, I think MOP is just as good, if not better, than Kata for that kind of play.
I think that's like a very TBC Wrath accurate comment, but in Kata, you can really just hit 85 and go and lose a bunch of arena games and get current season arena gear very quickly. I mean, it's not like, it's never going to be Dota where you can just like log on and you're just as powerful as everyone else. But I think Kata's really fixed the time investment problem.
Yeah,
I think there's just no interest.
Way better than the previous expansions. I agree.
What you mean? You mean it's better than the having to sit there in a BG and wait for a queue to pop for what, an hour? and then get a AV that's really unfun, like we did in original classic. Yeah, I agree that Mop is significantly better than that.
All right, guys. Thank you for sort of hitting its general style to start off with, and just talking about whether or not I'm justified in my excitement for this one. Let's get into the classes a little bit, because this is what I'm excited for. We'll go through them all one by one, and like I said, let's talk about what changes and why you're excited, for certain classes with the changes that come for them in MOP. But also, I want to see if we can build this fun tier list, and we'll do the S, the A, the B, the C, and the fucking F, and all that shit. But I just want to know what people should be pumped to play for the button pressing reasons, if that makes sense. So Double, I might start with you, mate, and I think we might as well just go fucking alphabetical here. We'll start with Death Knights, and I'll pose this question to you, Double, and by all means, guys, I'm not presuming you know everything about every class, and if you don't, just put your hand up and say, sorry, Josh, I don't know fucking anything about Death Knights, and we'll work around and see who knows what. But Double, you cover a lot of shit in your content, so I'm sure you know a little bit. But with Death Knights, my question would be, while some classes did get drastic overhauls in Mr. Pandaria, there are others that, sure, they got changes, but they're going to pretty much feel the same as Kata, with maybe just a couple of quality of life improvements. Am I wrong to say that the Death Knight in MOP pretty much plays as it does in Kata?
I have a little bit less experience with this class, but I think overall it is very, very similar play pattern to Kata. I think Frost and Unholy are very similar. There is a similar sort of snapshotting angle with Unholy, which can be super fun if you enjoy that kind of gameplay. But even if you don't, you can still do perfectly acceptable damage without it. So if you do like the way the specs play in Kata, they're pretty similar overall.
Okay. Naismith,
He's
sorry, go
I
for
was
it,
gonna say,
Naismith.
Double Zug is completely right. Like, as a tank, you play fairly similar. Keep your diseases up, death strike as much as you can. Like the big differences is in the management of your runes, and like which 75 tier talent you have selected, because that can actually change your playstyle up quite a bit. Because they change stuff like blood tap, which that's just like getting an easy death rune whenever you need it to like get another death strike off, stuff like that. Other than that, they get a really fucking cool talent called asphyxiate, which is pretty much just a
5-second stun, right?
yeah, it's a 5-second stun, but it's a choke.
Yeah.
It's you pretty much are what, Darth Vader,
Yeah,
like
you do
just
force
choking
grip.
someone out. It's fun. It's a really fun talent that you don't really get to use a whole lot in PvE, unfortunately.
So with that, Naismith, sort of jogging along the same lines that I put to Double Zug, it sounds like whilst there have been changes to the Death Knight, is it pretty much going to be a case of, if you found this class fun in Kata, you'll find it fun in MOP. If you didn't find it fun in Kata, you won't find it fun in MOP? Or have they done enough to win over the Death Knight curious people?
I would say if you like Death Knight, you're gonna like it again. It's not a radical change, and you don't get any of you don't get a one button thing that completely changes things around. Like Double, I really hope you'll forgive me if I'm wrong here, but I really fucking loved Halo. That was a really fun spell to start spamming once, like, I got when I was a priest back in MOP.
Halo's
You don't
great.
get that. You don't get that in Death Knight. There's not like a game-changing thing there, but it's solidly built, and your toolkit is still good.
So
Yeah, I would agree. Basically, like what you're getting at there is that, especially in the talent tree, a lot of specs get like a couple of rows that give you like a really powerful damage or healing ability. And Death Knight doesn't really have that. All their powerful stuff is just in their baseline toolkit, but they do get some really cool stuff on the talent tree anyways. Like there's really no spec that has a bad talent tree in my opinion. So you get stuff like Purgatory, which is like this really cool cheat death that's
Oh yeah, you
DPS
can
and
cheese
tanks can
shit
get,
with that.
where whenever you die, you like go into purgatory, and if you don't get healed, but if you do get healed, you'll like live. And that's really cool, really powerful as well too. And you get Gorfiend's Grasp, which is the AoE grip that we were talking about before, on a 1 minute cooldown, 30-yard range, or 20-yard range rather. And you can use it on like a friendly target, so you can do things like grip everything to a capacitor totem, so it gets stunned, or like a rooting totem, or there's all sorts of really powerful and cool and like flashy and fun stuff that you get to do from this talent tree. So even though you don't get like a crazy damage cooldown or something like Halo that's just really, really mathematically powerful, you get really cool, flavorful stuff that you're not going to be like bummed out about your talent tree as a DK.
Yeah. Have you ever, Josh? Have you ever seen the like the AOE? I think it's a cold. It's called Remorseless Winter. Have you ever seen that?
Yeah.
That's a really fun thing you can do and bring to like challenge modes where if you have a gigantic trash pack that you need to kill fast, that's a great thing to pop because it just gives one, you more survivability, and two, like the people, it'll root everyone in place, giving your DPS hopefully a chance to AoE the shit out of everything.
Also very cool in BGs.
Yeah,
That's true.
I mean, Gorfriend, like Naismith said, I've no doubt Gorfriend, I can't say it, Gorfiend's Grasp is incredibly fun to hit in the battleground. And sure, if you're speed running a dungeon or whatever, or a raid, and you want to get everything together, sure, wonderful, fun button to press. On the blood tap thing that you raised, Naismith, it just got me thinking about, it really seemed to me to be evident that part of the design philosophy with MOP, with a lot of like not just the redesigning of some of these specs, but also just streamlining of others, seems to be, fun and also really getting on the build spend train. And we'll get to the other classes that sort of really get into building and spending. But with the change to blood tap, and making it a little bit, I believe they made it a bit easier basically to get that blood tap in there and get those runes back as soon as you can. The misunderstanding of blood tap, it's called blood tap, right? I'm getting that right, aren't I?
You are.
Yeah. The misunderstanding of blood tap or poor blood tap use, I've no doubt, is the one thing that holds people back from understanding and enjoying Death Knight as much as they could. Because I was this player for a long time. I barely touched blood tap, and when I did, I didn't really know what the fuck I was doing. And once I worked out what it did, or, getting my head around it with macros and whatnot, it was a fucking game changer. And now I'm swimming in runes and I could do all my abilities and life was fucking wonderful. And if that gets better in MOP, then that's fantastic. But sometimes, it is just that one little change that makes a class more enjoyable. But also, just with the rune regeneration and rune usage, Naismith, like my big thing with Death Knights is, and again, happy for people to call me a fucking idiot because I like simplicity with the Death Knight, is, when they eventually changed the Death Knight to have basically all the runes be universal, I kind of enjoy that, but I get why some people prefer the old system like we've got now of you've got your 2 blood, 2 unholy, 2 frost, and you've got to sort of pick and choose and whatnot. Blizzard have obviously saw somewhat of the clunkiness from the initial inception and wrath of the system, and they've tried to sort of improve it as each expansion goes by. And then some people might say they went too far, but where do you feel is the sweet spot with runes and Death Knights for you, Naismith?
For me, I like the MOP version of them because I like the choices of because you can get runic empowerment or runic corruption, and that those are far more passive. And you can take one of those and you can play very similar to how you do today. But I like having a more active role in when stuff comes off cooldown, which is what the new blood tap redesign does really well. It also really helps like it gives you just honestly for me it works for me. Like it gives me numbers I can look at and think, oh, okay, I need to do like one more rune strike, and it's less about like preserving your rune power for your optimal damage from death strike, and more about using your abilities, which I think makes the class more fun.
Double, I'll just throw it over to you for a second, mate, and just say, in terms of tanking, there's so many opinions out there, or, maybe I should say lack of opinions on the Blood DK and MOP, because everyone effectively just says it's a foregone conclusion that this thing is the fucking greatest tank. It's the meta. It's number one. If you don't do it, you're missing out on being the best. If you're a tank, you got to be a Blood DK, blah, 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 lol at everyone else. Now, as I mentioned, when I was showering to your content earlier, I happened to notice you very, very, graciously and doing an amazing job of shouting out all these smaller content creators with, building a following now for MOP. And you showed some of their tier lists, and I was interested to see some of these P server guys who said nay to the Blood. And now, don't get me wrong, it would have probably maybe been a phase by phase thing, which I completely understand. But even to see for the first phase, I was surprised to see some of the P server guys go nay to the Blood DK. Actually, it's not a foregone conclusion that the Blood Death Knight is the best tank in the game. And I saw someone put up an argument for, Prot Paladin being S tier perhaps at the beginning of MOP, or I don't know if it was for all of MOP or whatnot. But what do you say to this argument, Double, about, Blood DK is the best tank, maybe the most fun tank. If you're not playing Blood DK, you're doing it wrong if you're tanking.
Yeah, well, that was definitely true for Kata. In Kata, it's kind of like, when you see one of those meme pictures of like the high school basketball team and there's one kid that's 8 feet tall.
Yeah.
And he's playing a bunch of 13-year-olds or
Yeah.
whatever. Like that's kind of Blood DK and Cataclysm. And it's just very much so not the case in MOP. The tank balance is actually very close and pretty tight. And over the course of all the phases, every single tank is like really good in certain niche circumstances, and they all have the ability to do every boss just fine. There's really like that gap was very, very big in Cataclysm. And I think a lot of classic players are kind of used to that being the case, where like people kind of say, oh, you can play any tank, but really you can't. Really, there's like one or two you actually have to play because people are just so into being optimal. Whereas in MOP, it actually is true when people say you can play any tank. And there is a little bit of power difference between the phases. And Blood DK is very, very good. It does a lot of damage. It's not actually the tankiest tank. I think Prot Paladin in the late game is like unkillable. Bear in the late game is unkillable. I think Warrior with a good healer is tankier than Blood DK. But like all the tanks have strengths and their utility. So they're close enough that you could reasonably bring a tank just for the utility. Like if you're missing some warrior utility, you can bring a prot warrior. If you want to have like a symbiosis from your bear, you can just bring a bear. Like there's all these, there's enough room to make those decisions. Whereas in previous expansions, it's like vanilla, you prot warrior. TBC, you have a prot pally and a bear. Wrath, you can have a blood DK and a prot paladin, and really at MOP, all the tanks are just fine.
Okay.
And Blood DK is very fun and very strong, but it's not like the greatest God's gift to the tanks.
So
he's completely right. Like it's not like the Blood DK is not a S plus. It's just a very, very good that does damage. Like you really have to know, one, the fights, and two, how to use your cooldowns properly if you don't want to die. That's something that you need your Blood DK to do. Paladin has such a great toolkit that I would never turn one down, at least during MOP.
So it's funny because I think of, it's more about the driver behind the wheel maybe in MOP, Naismith. Is that what you're saying? Because I think of the Prot Paladin in TBC, and please shout me down if I'm wrong, but my opinion was always you could get a fucking drunk driver, like a fucking idiot behind a Prot Paladin in TBC, and they're going to tank with great success. With Blood DK, is it very much so with all those, cooldowns and great mitigation that they've got? Is it going to be that a fucking idiot will not succeed on a Blood DK and MOP? Like they're strong, but you have to know how to use it?
I don't know if you won't be able to complete like the content if you have a bad or suboptimal DK tank. I think you should be able to figure something out. Because as Double said, when in MOP, there's no tank that can't do shit. They always have that. They have an ability that will let you complete a fight, but you just have to have. Sometimes you have to find the right player, and it it'll be that a little bit more, but it won't be game breaking.
Hmm.
And there's
Yeah,
no
what
brain
I would
dead
say
tank, right?
here.
Oh
Sorry,
no, there
go
are
ahead.
most of us are brain dead.
No, I'm just
In
I'm just
MOP.
saying that like the in Kata they really brought in active mitigation, but like just for blood. And in Pandaria you really can't get away with like not pressing any buttons on any of the tanks from what I see.
I think that's true, but I'm more than open to be wrong.
Yeah, it's 100% true. All the tanks. It's basically like I was saying before, like in Kata, Blood DK is the one kid who's 7 foot tall, and in MOP, they just give all the other players HGH, and now everybody's 7 foot tall. Everybody gets their active mitigation, and Blood DK is actually like their active mitigation is a little scarier for the healers because of how Death Strike works, like their health bar can kind of yo-yo a little bit, whereas some of the other healers are just extremely unkillable tanky. But to the skill thing, what I'll say is that I think your average tank is not going to have too much trouble living. The real difference that you're going to see in the skill expression is going to be how much damage your tanks can do. Because of how Vengeance works,
Yeah.
a really skilled tank will be able to live and also do
And
insane
pump.
damage.
Yeah.
On some fights, your tank is going to be top of the meters if they're really good.
Okay, what is it? It's Will of the Emperor, the final fight in Moishan Vaults. There is a little bonus you get if you do a mechanic
A little
utterly
dance.
right. Yeah, you do a dance with the two big bosses, and it's a very sizable like bit of damage that you can do, and your tanks should be number one on damage on that fight, no matter what.
All right, Wacklow, let me ask, mate. Let's rank this one in the fun department. I know there's obviously 3 specs, but we'll start with the tank and just say, look, as much as I personally don't find Blood DK to be the most fun tank in the game. I'm a Paladin enjoyer when it comes to Kata and MOP tanking. Where would you? I mean, we'll just get everyone chime in. Is the Blood DK the most fun tank in the game, or not quite?
I mean, I really like Kata Blood, and it's essentially the same spec. You have 1 or 2 more buttons, so I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
So where would
And
you
I
throw? Are
think
you S, A tier? What are you thinking for fun?
I'd say like B plus, A minus.
Okay, fair enough. Double, how about you? We're tearing it up for fun for the Blood DK.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit polarizing. I think if you're the kind of tank that likes having infinity cooldowns and having to kind of juggle all that stuff, Blood DK is awesome. Also, the self-healing stuff, if you like that, it's awesome. It's like A plus. But if you kind of just want to vibe, Blood DK is probably not for you. So that's what I'll say. I think it's really good for the players who love it, and some tank players like if you don't like it in Caddy, you're probably not gonna like the MOB version.
I don't like
I'll say
I
Blood
don't
D.
like the health yo-yo. Sorry, Wacklow, go.
I was just going to say Blood DK also, at least in Kata, is a lot of fun in PvP. It's kind of like playing like the really degenerate like prot Pala comps in Wrath, where like it can be frustrating on your side because you're not very sticky compared to Unholy in PvP, but like you just can't be killed.
Well, is it one of those things like
And
I remember in retail recently, like 6 months ago, I dicked around as a Blood DK in a battleground and I had a fucking blast. I had so much fun. But then people always say online, like, okay, yeah, you're unkillable, but are you griefing your group in a battleground as a Blood DK because you do no damage, but you're unkillable? Like, is it just something for funsies every now and again, or would you actually legit go, fuck it, I'm going to PvP for a while as a Blood DK?
If you're carrying a flag, it's great.
yeah, and in Arena, if you have a team that can support you, I mean, it's clearly worse. You feel that you like don't have the burst, or you just don't have Gary like you do with Unholy, but it's a lot of fun.
Surely it's not a thing in Arena. Surely.
It's not great, but I mean, there are, fairly highly ranked people playing Blood
Okay.
DK and 3s in Arena.
All right. So Double, sorry, I'm going to make you rate it as a tank.
I think it's A.
A. Okay. Naismith on the fun meter. Where are we putting Blood DK?
It's a low A on
Okay.
fun.
All right.
On anything else, it's probably S, but
All right.
pure fun,
Just
a little lower.
real quick on the DPS, we talked about blood tap. We talked about, little quality of life things or fun buttons to press. Frost, Unholy, not to get too deep in the weeds on the difference between the two, but just generally, guys, is it fun being a DPS Death Knight in MOP?
I hate to say that I'm going to say this so many times during this podcast, but it really depends on the fight. Like, because there are some fights where it is just punishing to be melee and mop. Others, it's not bad at all, but like, Heart of Fear is fucking brutal on melee.
Yeah, there's definitely some very range sort of dominant fights in MOP. What I'll say is I like that DK has two pretty different specs. Like Frost DK is if you want to just kind of vibe, you can take like one of the passive rune generators and put, Obliterate on mouse wheel up, Frost Strike on mouse wheel down, lean back in your chair with a beer in one hand and kind of just vibe and play it like it's vanilla Fury Warrior. And then if you want to sweat, you can do Unholy and you can be, getting your spreadsheet out in real time to calculate your dot snapshot or whatever. And there's kind of two halves on the same spec. So I think that's good. You can change things up. And Frost DK is not great, but it's not, I mean, all the specs in MOP are good enough that you can play them in raid just fine and in dungeons and all that stuff. So I like that it has that flexibility in one spec. So if you like melee, and I think it's like it's a solid B plus, I think, for me in terms of fun.
All right. Naismith, we got to make you grade it.
I can't really disagree. If you really, really like making your pet gigantic, it can be an A for Unholy. But other than that, like, it's just a perfectly solid, fine specs to play.
Wacklow?
You couldn't pay me to play PvE DPS Death Knight.
Wow. There
I don't
you
like
go.
either of them very much.
But PvP is obviously a different story.
PvP and tanking in I like blood well enough in PvE. I just especially Unholy. I've never really done Frost, but Unholy and PvE just is like, yeah, it's just not my style. You need to like do so much research to get your snapshots, and it just I don't know. It's not like you don't get like the button mashing adrenaline that you do with like certain melee classes, and you also don't get like these huge big chunks. It's just like all these little hits. I don't really get the appeal outside of them being like very good occasionally.
Yeah, I think Frost DK is a lot more like that traditional melee playstyle, but it's just not as good in MOP, unfortunately. But
Yeah.
it's fun. So
All right. Double, did we get you to give it a tier? Like, if I'm gonna throw it in the tier list here. I know it's hard to marry
yeah,
up.
I gave it like a high B.
All right. So let's see. I'll throw both Frost and Unholy in the great tier here. I don't know why it's got good, best. Anyway, we'll figure it out later. Anyway. All right. Guys, let's move on. Druid. Look, my PvE main is going to be a Resto Druid. Double is probably fucking cheering. All right, healer, let's go. Let's talk about the
Hell
healers.
yeah, let's go.
We talked about it before, Double. We won't go too far in depth and cover a lot of the territory that we did last time. But, I mean, I said to you before, the quality of life changes and like the two big things that were very easy pushes to main the Druid in PvE were obviously the changes to Mushroom, being able to move that for free around and have that be your circle of your plantable circle of healing is fantastic. And also the biggest one that I feel almost doesn't get talked about enough is the change to Harmony being 20 seconds and I believe Life Bloom being 20 seconds, or is it still 15? I forget.
It's 15.
15, right.
But you forgot the most important change, which is the Glyph of the Treant, which
Oh,
lets you be in the OG tree form permanently.
isn't
just
that in
as a
Kata?
cosmetic glyph? In Kata, it just changes the appearance of just the cooldown,
Right.
but in Mop, you can just have it on always. So
Oh,
big
okay.
upgrade.
I see. Very good. Very good. Well, look, I mean, we'll get into this when we talk about what class I'm going to main for PvP as well. But I'm a huge, huge sucker for mobility. And when I say mobility, I don't usually mean it in the same way that most MMO gamers mean it. You know, people, when I say mobility, people think, oh, Josh, you know, you must mean a class with a lot of gap closes and sprints and things like that. Like that's mobility. And I appreciate that that's generally what it means. No, I mean just a class that has a lot of instant casts. I'm a weird MMO player for many reasons, but I love to frenetically hit WSA and D as I do my thing. So if I'm questing, if I'm PvPing, if I'm mob grinding, if I'm farming, whatever the fuck I'm doing, I don't like standing in place. I'm not the guy that enjoys planting my feet. And this is why I've stayed away from casters for much of the last 6 years. I don't like planting my feet for prolonged periods of time and just sitting there and being a turret. I like to dance around the mob like a fucking idiot doing my rotation. I don't know if you guys do the same thing, but like, you know, if I'm playing a warrior, I don't charge up to the mob and then remove my left hand from WSAD and just hit my rotation and stand still in place and do it. I'm the weirdo that's like charge up to the mob, walk through it 50 fucking times as I'm WSADing all over the fucking place and doing my weird frenetic rotation. That's just me. It's a fucking, I don't think I have ADHD, but maybe that's a fucking sign that I do. So with the Druid, the Resto Druid, if you were ever doing a dungeon with me, you'd see the healer up the back going, what the fuck is that healer doing? Because I am just moonwalking and dancing all over the place. And even if there's like, you know, there doesn't have to be swirlies to avoid. I'm just running around fucking the whole time. Redo for you, don't stop moving is my mantra. I don't know. It's just something I like to do with my left hand. Does that make sense to you, Double? Do you enjoy that?
Yeah, you're just like a melee DPS at heart, man. Doing the strafe spamming.
Yeah.
I feel like everyone does that though. It's just like something about WoW makes you want to spam your left and right strafe. But I definitely think Resto Druid is a good choice for you then because literally the only spell you actually ever have to cast is Regrowth and it has like a 1.5 second base cast time. And like you don't really have to cast it that much anyway. So basically all your important spells are instant on Druid, which is incredible. You do have Tranquility, but there's some really cool stuff you can do. Maybe this is a little bit too inside baseball, but you can get
Yeah.
ancestral swiftness from a shaman
Yeah.
with symbiosis, which lets you cast while moving. So like even if you ever do have to cast Tranquility, you can just run around while channeling it.
Oh,
And
I
also
love
you
it.
get a talent that whenever you swiftmend, you get a bunch of haste, and that works with Tranquility. So if you just press Tranquility to that, it only
Yes.
takes like 3 seconds to channel.
Yes.
It's just incredible.
I learned that from your videos and I will be fucking all over that one. I actually don't mind. You know, we talk about every class has, you know, 2 buttons that you just fucking love hitting that really hits that fucking G spot in your brain and you go, oh, I love that ability. And, you know, Naismith talked about Gorfiend's Grasp, and Tranquility for me is a weird one with Druid. I just fucking love hitting it. Sit there and fire up that channel, and I just, even if it's the full 7 or 8 second channel or whatever, I just watch it and go, oh, yes, as I watch everyone's life bars just go fucking bananas. And, you know, you've talked about this Double on your channel going, you know, it's cool that, yeah, Druid doesn't have the raid wide cooldowns that everyone covets, like your Spirit Link Totem and everything, and that's why everyone loves Shaman and blah 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 blah. But it's not like Tranquility is bad. The throughput is fucking insane, and it hits that dopamine hitting it because you're like, I saved us.
Yeah, absolutely. Tranquility is like really juicy in MOP. And it does feel amazing to press. Um, Also, the mushroom bloom is also just incredibly like that's a dopamine button right there when you hit it. And it also like because it charges up with your overhealing on rejuve, a lot of the time when you're playing Druid, if you're just kind of like spamming rejuve out there and you kind of just see him sitting on people just overhealing, it doesn't feel great. But when you have that shroom out, it makes pressing rejuve all the time kind of feel a lot better because, you know, like even if it overheals, I'm just charging up my mushroom so that later I can get my big dopamine burst. So overall, the spec, just like every aspect of it feels amazing in MoP. All the quality of life, all the extra power you get. And there's a lot of cool talents and stuff. It's just like really overall, Druid is like just insane in MoP, really fun.
Tranquility is also a raid cooldown for the first time, right? In MoP?
Yeah, absolutely. It's full. It's across the whole raid, and also in 25 minutes
Oh.
boosted to hit 12 players every tick,
Oh, I didn't
which
know
is like
that. That's
insane.
great. That's fantastic. Very
Yep,
good.
it gets a huge power boost.
Wacklow and Naismith, again, please shout me down for being terribly stereotypical here, but for some reason I don't picture you guys as healers. Do you have anything on the Resto Druid, or have you not really touched it before?
I haven't touched it since TBC.
Right. Do you don't fuck with healers much at all, do you, Wacklow?
Not generally,
No,
no.
all good. Naismith, how about you?
I played some Resto Druid back in Draenor, so it's been about a decade. However, I have always enjoyed hitting the Tranquility button when I'm on an alt.
Yeah, to be clear, I mean like I played it in 2007 before I quit retail. I was a little 13-year-old trying to heal in Serpent Shrine Cavern. So no, haven't been much of a healer.
Do you touch healers much at all these days, Naismith?
Yeah, I played during Wrath. I played quite a bit of Paladin,
Okay.
Holy Paladin,
Okay.
just because we needed it for a 10-man,
Fair
and I've also played Shaman and very briefly Resto Druid.
Very good. All right. Well, what we'll do is maybe we'll steer clear of a rating from Wacklow and Naismith on this one, unless they really want to. But the healers here, Zug and myself, the boys will be healing it up in MoP. We'll give this one a rating. Look, I mean, we'll get to the DPS specs next, but I mean, I'll just say, just to close off on Resto Druid double, like I said, I picked it for my main as my PvE main for a fucking reason. I think it's S tier in the fun department, and like, you know, we'll say to people, sure, if you go and watch doubles videos, if you want to be the quote-unquote best healer with the meta and the most throughput, don't play a Resto Druid. But if, in my opinion, you want to have the most fun, I don't think it's a stretch to say that the Resto Druid's the most fun healer in MoP double. Do you think so?
I think it's definitely up there. My personal preference would be for some of the other specs, but I think overall Resto Druid, it has like all the combination of being, it's actually, you say it's not like meta, but it's probably the closest to the big two in terms of getting that like fifth or sixth healer spot in a meta composition. And it does bring some nice unique utility. So that's like not a too huge of a down thing on it too, but it is super fun. I also it's also a bonus that it's really good in PvP. So
Yeah.
if you want like to do both types of gameplay, that's a huge bonus for the spec. It's very, very powerful. It's like part of the god comp.
Yeah.
And a lot of the cool, really powerful, flashy utility stuff you get is also really good in PvP, which is nice, especially like Symbiosis. I don't know if we want to go too deep into Symbiosis because it's a pretty complicated, crazy ability, but needless to say, you can do some insane things in PvP with Symbiosis, and it's also pretty good in PvE and raiding and stuff like that as well. So that's really cool. It feels really cool to be like kind of the support druid thing where you're granting somebody else an ability and you're taking something from their class. It's just really cool. And you know, you get, for God's sake, you get Blink in this expansion as a druid, which is just insane. And you get like Heart of the Wild, which lets you just like be a tank or a DPS for 45 seconds, which is insane. Like if you like being the guy in the dungeon where the tank dies or the healer dies, and all of a sudden like you just press this one button and you know you're the healer now, you're the tank now. You can do that in MoP on Druid, and it's like it's actually really strong. It's totally serviceable, which is in like normal dungeons and heroic dungeon, normal raid, all that stuff. So Druid just has a lot going for it. I definitely think it's like super high A or low S in terms of fun.
Very good. I started PvP healing for the first time ever on my Resto Druid in Kata, and I've had a blast with it. I'm not good enough to know what the fuck to do once people train me. I pretty much die, but like, they're very strong. It's very noticeable. They're fantastic. Look, guys, there's so much to talk about with the Druid. I really will try and just do it a bit of a disservice and do it quite quickly, or we'll never finish here today. DPS and tank, Bear, Cat, Moonkin. How are we feeling in the fun department with these ones? Look, everyone talks about how Feral is so fucking powerful now in MOP. I don't particularly like playing Feral Druid, but I feel like I'm the anomaly. Everyone sucks Feral Druid off all the fucking time, not just in MOP. Everyone just has this weird Feral Druid boner, and I've never been into it. I mean, a bit of it is because I can't see my gear, but just in general, I'm like, look, the thought of being half a rogue isn't that appealing to me. I just feel a bit gimped, but people fucking love it. Anyone, jump in first. DPS or tank druids, are they fun in MOP? Nobody.
Tank druids are fun.
Yeah, tank. But isn't DPS kind of janky in MOP? Like, not very good. You just bring it
I
to
think
soak gear and like be your off.
Cat performs pretty well,
the way
doesn't
it
it?
works is it's like it's very determined by your gear because I think one of there's like two main reasons why people glaze Feral Druid so much on MOP. I think one of them is just like there's this community perception that it's like, oh, it's super hard. And it's kind of the same thing with like Affliction, Block, and Wrath or whatever. Like people, whatever spec is super hard, people will just glaze because we're WoW players and we like to think we're god gamers. So
Yeah.
that's part of it. I also think part of it is that people really like when there's a crazy broken item in the game, and then you can take advantage of that item as on a spec. And Feral Druid, they put some insane trinkets in Mists of Pandaria. They really went all out with the gear. They pulled out all the stops. There's some really broken items, and there's a trinket in Throne of Thunder that like basically just it has a proc that like gives you an insane amount of your highest secondary stat. And Feral Druid can take really good advantage of this item. So they get really, really good once they get that trinket and they get like higher stats. So later on they're insane, but for phase one they won't be very good. And the same thing is kind of true for Boomy, where Boomy's kind of bad early. It's kind of a meme spec, and then by like Siege they're okay. But I think Boomy's not super fun, honestly. It got a lot of nerfs to like how its procs worked and stuff like that. But if you really want to play Boomy, it's like okay. It's probably like a C in terms of fun. But I think a lot of people are going to get baited into playing Boomy, and you might be one you might want to avoid. Feral, on the other hand, if you really do like the complicated like dot snapshotting, you know, five head type stuff, Feral is really fun. But if you don't like that stuff, maybe it's an avoid. So a little bit kind of unfortunate on the Druid DPS, where one spec is like just kind of a meme spec for most of the expansion, and then the other one is like pretty complicated to get the most value out of it. And on the tank side, I think Bear is super fun. Bear is probably like the simplest tank. If you just want to vibe, it's really good, and it also has like some interesting utility stuff. So I think Bear is probably like a B, and Feral is like Feral is going to be very, very polarizing. Where if you really like playing it, it's going to be like S plus God tier, and if you just don't like that kind of gameplay, it's going to be like F for you. Whereas Boomy is probably like a C.
Okay, Wacklo, you're about to talk about the tank. Do you agree with that assessment?
Yeah, more or less. The like P server logs I've been looking at have been like phase one, so I'm not talking about with like Siege of Ogrimmar trinkets for the strength of Feral. I don't really know what goes on later, but yeah, Druid DPS doesn't seem, at least early game, to be in like very high demand, and Feral, unless you really love the like bleed snapshot, doesn't seem to be all that fun in MOB.
Well, again, I get the impression that maybe akin somewhat to the Death Knight, that, there's some great quality of life changes in there for the DPS or tank druid, but no drastic changes. Is that fair to say or not?
Well, the Bear gets its active mitigation, which is a decently large change, but it's still very simple. You get Thrash, which is just like a little AoE button you press, but pretty much it's the standard bear where you're just kind of mauling and mangling and sitting there taking damage. Feral doesn't really get that many changes. It just you get a lot of like little moving parts that you have to juggle and optimize. So if you're that type of player that loves optimizing and getting a little, little 5% here and there and managing your snapshots, it's going to be for you. But if you don't, if you hear that and you're just like, it makes you. If you hear that and you're not excited, then definitely don't play Cat. Um, and Boomy again is just it's kind of in a pretty nerfed weak state, so it's a little bit unfun.
Yeah, so is Boomy our first, like, we sit here and we're in general, people, as Double says, glazes all the fucking classes in MOP, going, oh my god, MOP's the greatest expansion ever. All the classes are so good. Is Boomy sounding like one of our very few outliers? Like, actually, it's pretty fucking average.
As far as I know about Boomkin, that's fairly accurate. It's just it doesn't scale as well as other classes do. So with the all the secondary stats you start getting even after Throne of Thunder, so it gets better, but it just doesn't get better at the same rate as other classes.
Yeah, I don't know what it is about Boomy, but at least so far it's never been good. It's been fine, but it's never been great.
All right. Well,
yeah, I think they made a change. I remember looking through the patch notes for this a few weeks ago. But I don't remember perfectly. They made a change to how like your instant Star Surge procs happen. I think it was pretty late in the expansion. And I think before that, it was like really good, especially in PvP, because you'd like get a bunch of Star Surge procs and kind of like one-shot somebody. But I think the nerfs really hurt it a lot. And by the time you get into Siege, it's a little better. But I think being like the lowest performing DPS spec really, like ultimately that it's not that the spec is so unfun to play. It's just being the super underdog definitely takes some juice out of it. But
Yeah.
also I do think it's Boomy just is in it. It's one of those specs like Shadow Priest where it just a lot of the expansions it just doesn't feel like it's all the way cooked, you know? And I think Mop is a little bit like that. It's definitely better. It's definitely more fun to play than Kata Boomy. I think Kata Boomy is like there's a lot of really weird stuff you have to do with like sitting in solar eclipse and really unintuitive, kind of unfun, weird stuff. And that stuff's gone in Mop, so it's definitely better than Kata, but it's a little bit lower, I think.
Kata Boomy is also in PvP, just like not well designed. It's so binary.
Okay. All right. Guys, let's move on to Hunter. And this is probably the first class of a few that we'll talk about that I think got changes that amounts to relatively drastic changes. Like I wouldn't go as far as calling it a redesign with the Hunter, like Warlock's got, but there's some pretty big changes that will change the way the class feels to a lot of people, even coming just from Kata to Mop, let alone like, how fucking night and day the class is from Vanilla and TBC to Mop. Like it's almost like a different class. But, you are now turned into, in my opinion, truly what is just the ranged rogue. Despite the fact that we had energy in Kata, being able to really cast all of your abilities on the move now, unless I'm mistaken, guys, I'm pretty sure that's what you can do. All those things that have 2-second cast times that I believe you had to plant your feet for in Kata, you no longer have to in Mop. And you are truly, I mean, it sounds like it would be a wet dream for me where I just described that all I like to do is run around and never stop on my character. Oh, Josh, surely you'd love the Hunter. I want to love Hunter. But, as Hunk and I have said on the show, I weirdly have a great, amount of love for the vanilla Hunter, and no other iteration of Hunter does it for me in World of Warcraft. Even the TBC Hunter goes a fringe too far, in my opinion. I just don't like the way it plays. But, there's something weird about stopping for a quarter of a second in between auto shots in vanilla and, planting your feet for the big aim shot and then running away afterwards that I really enjoy, and really just run sprinting around and now not having a sword or an axe, and you only have one weapon in Mop. It's you know, I guess you can still equip the melee weapon, but effectively, you know, you take your crossbow or your bow or your gun and you're running up. There's no dead zone. You shoot them in the face from 1 yard away. You're always pew-pewing. Taking away that swap is a big thing for me. I rather like getting in melee range and whipping out the big two-hander and fucking slicing them up the guts and then running out into range again and pulling out the crossbow. So it's a weird class for me in MOP, and I was just dicking around with this the other night, like I say, in the first zone, and I want to love it, but I don't. But that's a very personal, subjective thing, because I'm very fucking aware that there's going to be a lot of people out there that go, oh my God, this version of Hunter fucking slaps. I love it. Dominates in PvP. I'm constantly on the run. No dead zone is a fucking gift from God. I love this shit. Hook it up to my veins. So I don't want to comment too much on the Hunter because I know that I'm the anomaly here. First in, best dressed, guys. How do you guys feel about the redesign for Hunter in MOP and how it affects its fun?
Hunter is probably the spec I have the least experience with in all of WoW, and I'm definitely on your page. I'm kind of a Hunter hater, and I also do like the pattern of like vanilla play where you have to like stop and stutter step to get your shots out.
Yeah, I was going to say, did you play one at all in vanilla double? Did you get into it?
Yeah, I've like leveled the Hunter in vanilla before. I like the vanilla play style, just how it flows, but yeah, it's probably the spec I played the least in my WoW career. Fair
enough. Like I said, if anything outside of vanilla, I don't touch them. And here's an insight into how much I sort of... I stop short of saying dislike them. It's just that it really doesn't gel with me personally. I have every class at 85 in Kata, but for Mage and Hunter. So that tells you how I feel about those two classes. Wacklow, sorry, you were going to say, mate?
No, it's something similar. I really like vanilla Hunter. And then TBC Hunter, I don't think anyone likes. It's just so strong. And I think MOP is going to kind of be the same. I mean, I don't know how much people like it, but it's so good, especially early on, that I think there's just going to be a million Hunters, and it's going to be fun for them because they're going to be at the top of the DPS charts. But I didn't really like Sod Hunter, so I assume I wouldn't like a more modern iteration of Hunter.
Yeah.
Vanilla Hunter just kind of feels very complete in a way that other classes besides Warrior don't. And nothing else I've played has really scratched that exact itch.
Naismith, are you going to be the outlier here and say, fuck you all, I love Hunter?
Sorry, no. Hunter's fine. It's okay. People play it. I actually really agree with Wacklow there. Like, if it's strong, people will play it and someone will have fun doing it. But it's not my cup of tea personally. As a longtime Warlock player, I know it's weird to say this, but I don't really enjoy pet management in WoW. A lot of times, they are not always the most logical beings on Earth, and it can be really frustrating with a hunter sometimes, dealing with pets and like activating abilities properly.
And we'll get, when we get to Warlock, we'll get into why I love MOP Warlock and what they've done with pet management, a little thing there. But look, the one thing hearing you all say this about Hunter right now has me thinking is, you know, I have to go... Obviously, there's going to be a shitload of people playing Hunter in Mists of Pandaria, but two thoughts come into mind. You know, the first is, you know, the Simpsons meme of Principal Skinner saying, you know, am I so out of touch? No, it's the children who are wrong. Are we so out of touch? Are we the ones who are wrong, or is it everyone else who is wrong about Hunter and MOP? I would probably say that we're out of touch in terms of this playstyle just doesn't vibe with us, but it totally clicks with other people, and it's all well and good, each to their own. However, just piggybacking off of something Naismith just said, and also Wacklow, I think, touched on this too. I mean, we couldn't answer this definitively, but do you get the impression that people are playing Hunter in MOP purely because of how much it pumps and less because of the playstyle? Like, do people actually play this class and not really particularly enjoy it, but just enjoy what logs it returns?
Do people actually enjoy hitting Shadow Bolt over and over and over as a Warlock in TBC? I
Fair.
know
Yes.
I
Yes.
I know I had fun with it, but it was not the most gratifying gameplay.
I think I'm my position on Hunter is probably definitely biased, but and against it. I think Hunter, there are definitely players that love Hunter, and it definitely there's like an appeal to it. Also, there's some really cool additions in MOP. Like every spec gets really cool stuff. You get like some cool flavorful utility binding shots, really cool, where you kind of like you shoot your little AoE that like tethers people to it, and then if they move out of it, they get stunned. Also, with when it comes to pet management, you can take like blink strikes, which is a talent that makes your pet just like teleport instantly behind its target at a 30-yard range, so that makes your pet management a little bit easier. Power shot's really cool, which is like a big charged up shot you do that knocks back. So you get some cool like flavorful stuff. Also, Stampede is really cool, where you just summon like all your pets out of your stable and they just all attack. It's a little cooldown, which is really cool. It's powerful in PvP and PvE. So you get a lot of cool additions. If you do like the modern Hunter design, you will definitely like it in MOP. It's definitely just overall better than it is in Cataclysm, design and fun wise. It's just not for me personally, but I think Hunter players will like it.
All
Also,
right.
there's an appeal to Hunter where like because it's so mobile, if you like being the guy that can like handle all the mechanics and do a bunch of like utility and be really useful to the raid, Hunter is a really good uh, for that. It's also because it's simpler in terms of its rotation, you can raid lead from it. So if you're going to be like the hero to your raid, Hunter is a good position to be that guy from. So I think a lot of those type of players will really like this version of Hunter.
All right. I'm going to put it
I think
all in. Sorry, I'm going to put it all in the middle of the pack. And that's not so much saying that it's just an average to good spec into its class in terms of fun, but just more. I'm putting it there because we're the wrong guys to talk to about this one, maybe, and I'm just leaving it there as a bit of a not applicable for all you guys watching on YouTube. And for everyone watching on YouTube, just remember this tier list is about fun, not about performance. So please do remember that before you write your angry YouTube comment. So Hunter is kind of like, we can't work that one out. Go speak to a Hunter about it. Naismith, sorry, you were going to say?
I was just going to say, like, they do have one of the most powerful defensives in deterrence.
Oh yeah, it's
It's
huge. It's so
it
annoying in
is
PvP. So annoying.
it's so useful. Like I'm going to reference Will of the Emperor again, but like on heroic, that fight has like some really irritating mechanics, and deterrence is one of the best things to get by it.
Yeah, it's a thing all across MOP where if your spec has some cool piece of utility like deterrence, you're definitely going to get a chance to use it in like every tier rating, which is really cool. Like every spec's cool utility thing they get is actually useful.
Sorry, does deterrence get changed in?
You get it goes down to a 1 minute cooldown, which is I think you need it. It's one of the talents does that.
Oh, I see.
Yeah,
But it doesn't
also
work on dots. It still has all the like weaknesses of deterrence.
It does, but it's so good at like just taking huge shots from mechanics that it's too useful not to have.
Also, side note, as a druid, as a resto druid, you can get it with symbiosis, which is just another insane resto druid thing.
All right, guys, we'll move.
Josh,
Sorry, keep going, mate.
I was just gonna say, Josh, you need to have like an entire like podcast just about like dealing with symbiosis, because that is an absurd ability.
Oh, really? I mean, we didn't talk about it. We mentioned it with the druid, but like it would be an extended conversation, definitely on, as Double was saying, is all the crazy shit that you can do with it. Guys, we'll move on. Like I said, time will be a factor, so we'll move on to Mage. Again, I'm a horrible person to talk to about Mage because I'm not a fan of mages as they get more modern, much like the Hunter. So I dicked around with a Frost Mage and a Fire Mage on the beta and just went, nope, I'm good, not particularly engaging for me. However, I am aware that they're very strong, and one of the really fun parts about MOP is that Frost Mage comes online in PvE, much as, you know, it was a revelation when Subtlety Rogue came online, I believe, in Kata for PvE rogues. Now Frost Mages go like, huzzah, we're not just a fucking PvP bot from now on, we can do other shit. How do you guys feel about the Mage in MOP? Does it, you know, is something as simple as like just tweaking numbers for Frost and making it viable now in PvE a game changer for this class?
I don't know how much the mages are like itching for Frost in PvE. I'm a mage player. I play mage every X pack, and it's the only class I play every X pack. And it'll be fun for one phase, but I don't know how many people there are who are looking forward to being like Frost mains. The one thing you have, I mean, it's less unique in MOP because everyone gets mobility, but Frost has an insane amount of mobility. In MOP, Frostbolt's really the only thing you have to stand still for, and it's not like a super high impact spell.
That's
But
the filler, isn't it?
yeah, it's the filler. And another thing about Mage is like Mage itself, like as a class, is good the whole X pack. But if you want to play Fire Mage, you're gonna have to wait until like phase 3 or 4 to be any good at all. You're gonna be like worse than Moonkin in phase 1. You might literally be the worst DPS spec in the game in
Yeah, I
phase
think it's
1.
the worst.
And so Mage, I think, has some cool stuff. Alter Time is very cool, but a lot of it is just more polish on the Kata Mage, which I would give like a B plus in terms of all the iterations of Mage. I think like Wrath Fire Mage is a lot of fun, and like Legion Fire Mage again becomes a lot of fun. And then in between, it's like fun, but not my favorite iteration, mainly because of just like how central Combust is to your DPS. Like getting off a good Combust, it's almost like you're a range DK. Like if you don't get that one spell perfectly lined up, you're just not doing good DPS.
Fair enough.
That was my experience of raid leading back in MOP when it was current. Was our fire mage? If he didn't get a good combustion off, he sucked. Like it was, like he wasn't a detriment to the like attempt, but he wasn't good.
Yeah, the cooldown goes down, so like the variance gets a little narrower. You're not so dependent on like one of your 2 combusts for the fight being really good. But it's still like a crazy amount of your DPS for that one spell. You also, not to like get too in the weeds, you get cool stuff like what Alter Time does, and Alter Time's the major like new ability, is it refreshes your health, mana, and buffs to what they were 6 seconds ago, 6 seconds after you press the button, or whenever you. It's Tracer Ultimate from what's the name of the shooter?
Overwatch, yeah.
Yeah, from Overwatch. It's like Tracer Ult basically. You don't get cooldowns back, but you get everything else. And because some cooldowns function as a buff, like Presence of Mind is a buff that you give yourself that makes your next spell instant cast. So you get your hot streak lined up, you have an instant cast Pyro, you instant cast Pyro, you Presence of Mind, you Alter Time, you get another instant cast, then you Alter Time again, and then you have both buffs again. So you get 4 consecutive GCDs of instant cast Pyro, and then you can combust. That's another way in which the RNG is not as bad. So there are meaningful changes. I think it'll be like fun to be Frost for a phase or 2. But it's not like Mage is revolutionized.
Honestly, hitting Pyroblast that much actually kind of sounds fun. Like,
yeah, I think it'll be more fun than Kata. Just remains to be seen whether we get back to the Wrath days where it doesn't feel like a dot class.
I'm definitely a mage enjoyer. I think I mained mage in original MOP. And I definitely think all the specs are much better than their Kata implementation. You get a little bit more complexity. I think that Alter Time is actually like just an insanely fun button to press in both PvE and PvP. It's really flexible. You can use it as a defensive. You can use it to like get charges of all your Fingers of Frost, your Hot Streak, your Brain Freeze, all that stuff. You just get it back, which is really nice. It's also the version we get in MOP will let you extend cooldowns. It doesn't like give them back to you, but if you use it while like Bloodlust is up, for example, and you alter back, you'll get 6 extra seconds of Bloodlust. So that ability just in itself is super fun to like min-max around. Also, super quick mentions here. if you've played Fire Mage in Cataclysm, you are probably super annoyed by having to proc like the Fire Blast impact in order to spread your dots. In Mop, you just get Inferno Blast, which will always spread your dots, and every time you combust, it gives you the cooldown of that back. So there's no RNG of waiting around to get a Fire Blast to like hope it proc so that you can actually spread your dots. You can just always do that, which is insane. So a lot of the like really annoying RNG slot machine aspects of Fire Mage are gone. So by the time like in Siege, when Fire Mage becomes good, I think that spec is like S tier. I think it's super, super fun. Arcane Mage also gets a little bit more complexity. It's very similar to Cataclysm. The one problem I'll mention with Arcane Mage is you do have to play around your Rune of Power, which is a 90 row talent, where you put a little rune on the ground, and when you're inside the rune, you get powered up. This is kind of a cool mechanic, but a lot of the earlier phase raids make you move a lot, and so it becomes really, really annoying. So I think Arcane Mage is definitely down a peg in terms of fun there, just because of playing around that rune is really annoying. But the other specs, you don't really have to do that. And I think Frost is like S tier for me personally. It's like not super hard to play. It's pretty simple, but you have like infinite mobility, and it's kind of like a Frost DK, but just at range and also much better. Where you're just kind of running around like spamming your Ice Lance and your Brain Freeze procs and your alter timing around, and you're like unkillable. The other thing to mention here, which is really cool, is that every mage spec gets cauterize. So every mage spec just has a cheat death, which is like really crazy buff to the non-fire specs. And it's really nice to have that in PvE and PvP. It's just fun to play around. You also do get some tools to cast while moving, like a lot of the specs. You get ice flows, which is like a charge thing that lets you cast while moving. All the mage specs get palm if you want it. So there's a lot of really cool additions to Mage. I think it's again just the cata specs like crank to 11. I think Frost is like S tier. I think Arcane is like B tier just because of the rune's super
Well,
annoying.
I was
And
going
I
to say,
think
Double.
Fire is
Sorry,
like A.
if I can jump in, I was just going to say, because I've caught it again in this conversation, and I've caught it amongst all the content that I've taken in around MOP. Even though it's, quote unquote online for PvE, why does nobody talk about Arcane Mage?
I think it's just
Yeah,
always the
I
second
don't know.
best mage spec, and it's also just it's not fun. Like TBC Arcane Mage was fun, and then until like the modern Arcane Mage, it's just kind of, in my opinion, a class, a style that no one wants to play.
Double, you agree?
Yeah,
Like
it's
I don't.
usually either like really brain dead simple, or if you look at like retail Arcane, so annoyingly complicated that nobody wants to play it. Whereas I also feel like it suffers from the fact that Fire and Frost are usually like really fun,
Hmm.
and Arcane is just kind of the redheaded stepchild of the three. It's like the holy priest of Mage, where it's always overlooked.
Fair enough.
Yeah,
I
I
kind
think
of
you
like
weren't
Arcane though,
Doomer.
honestly. I mean, maybe I'm just a degenerate freak, but I do kind of like Arcane even when it's super simple. Like TBC Arcane, I actually think is kind of fun.
I love TBC Arcane. I think you weren't Doomer enough though about Rune of Power, because like if you are one of the three people playing Arcane, I think you take Evocate, right? You take like the thing that changes.
I think if you can't use Rune, you just don't play Arcane. You just play
Really?
different. You play Frost.
Oh,
But
I thought
maybe
they
I'm
did.
wrong about
But I
that.
think
You
Fire
you
also
could probably
takes Rune.
use the
Don't you
Evo.
need to take Rune as Fire? What else would you take?
I think on movement fights you can take the other options, and it's not too big of a difference for the other specs. I think it's mostly. Maybe I'm wrong, but I haven't played Mage and Mop for a while, so.
I think Fire, because like you're still you want like the biggest ignite possible to get your combust, and I don't think Incanter's Ward or Invocation
You're
give you
right.
that.
No, you like fire does need at literally every single bit of damage they can possibly get, and that means you have room.
Yeah, and Rune, like you put something on the ground, and if you're within, I think 8 yards of it, you get a ton of bonus damage and you get some bonus mana regen. Actually, for Arcane, maybe you do play Rune because you get the mana regen, but it's like the worst ability in the game. It's really, there's like nothing fun about playing around Rune. It just makes you like have to anchor yourself. And it's by far the worst change to Mage. It would be a way better class in this X pack if they just got rid of Rune and only gave you 2 options and like gave you buffs if you needed it, but Rune is not at all fun.
So do you think it's fair for me to put, going off of Double's advice here, Wacklow, Fire and Frost in the S tier of fun?
I think that Mage players are going to love Mage, and the people that don't like it are just not going to play it. So I think for the people that are actually going to play the spec, I think Fire and Frost are super up there.
Right.
But, yeah, I think Frost is definitely up there. I think Fire's a little less fun than it could be, but I fully agreed on Frost.
Well, Naismith was a bit down on Fire as well. I'll bump Fire down one
because
Fire
is just
the combustion
really
headache.
Bad in PvE. So that's the problem with it. I think the actual playstyle is good in my opinion.
I agree there. It is fun to play, and come on, Mage is one of those classes that usually always has something else in its toolkit that it can do to like fuck with you, especially in PvP. Like Mage is almost always fun to play.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Mage is always like 10x as fun in PvP as it is in PvE, and that's 100% true in MoP.
Fair enough, fair enough. Galley Boy, mate, how are you?
Yo, good. How are you?
I'm good, mate. Now, look, you jumped on because we did the hunters a disservice because you were listening while doing the dishes and said, what the fuck? These pricks didn't talk about Barrage.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that comes in MoP. Remember, I'm kind of retired now, but that is one of those abilities that it's super fun to press, but also it's like Starfall where it can just get you in a whole lot of trouble.
I'm here for it. I'm ready. Are you a hunter enthusiast in MoP?
I played it, and the only 85 I have in Kata is a hunter, so that's kind of what I've been playing in the classic sphere, other than Sod. So
well, there you go. I feel like we did your class dirty. Is there anything else we left on the table?
No. I mean, I think it's fine. It's one of those things that I think Hunter's like a really vibe, like it's just a good class if you're trying to chill, you know? It's normally fairly easy. I think it's pretty fun. Again, I did not raid in MoP, so I can't really say like end game stuff, but in terms of feel, I think if you like Hunter, you'll probably be fine with it.
All right.
Yeah, it's 100% like a chill class to play.
Fair enough. Guys, let's do Monk. The one that I know fucking nothing about outside of what I've been told through videos. Now we'll wrap it all up in the fun department across healing, tanking, and DPS. It's a jack of all trades, as you guys know. I've only very, very, very lightly tried like monk healing on retail. I know it's obviously a bit different. Dabbled in some testing with fucking tanking in the beta, but just like, not actually tanking a dungeon, just using the abilities on mobs. So I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. Everyone says, oh my god, Double Zug, the Brewmaster fucking monk is the most fun tank. It's so fun. Very unique mechanics there, obviously with cleansing the dot off yourself with the damage and everything. How do you feel about it?
I think that is largely true. I think the thing with Brewmaster is like, if you get into beta and you like do a template character and you want to jump into a dungeon and start tanking and you load up a bear and you jump in, you're going to be right into the thick of things. You're not going to have any trouble living. You're just going to be like, oh, I'll press my thrash, I'll press my mangle, my maul, my 4 buttons, and then if I lose some HP, I'll press my enrage regen, and that's that. Whereas Monk is like the exact opposite, where if you just have never played Brewmaster before and you load up a Brewmaster and you try to go to a dungeon, you're going to be like, what the hell am I doing here? Like, how do I live? What the hell's going on? It's pretty complicated, and some of the interactions are like just a little bit odd. It feels very much kind of like a high skill floor tank where you really have to. I mean, if you play from level 1, you'll learn all this stuff slowly, but it actually is like pretty high skill cap to be good at and to live. And but if you do figure all the things out, you do get a handle on all the different moving parts and all your active mitigation and your shuffle and your stacks of all your brews, and guarding at the right time and all this stuff, you will have a absolute blast on Monk.
Yeah.
So if you're a real tank enthusiast, definitely at some point just learning how to play Brewmaster and just doing some dungeons or whatever, even if you don't take it into a raid, it's definitely worth a shot if you do love tanking. And the reward for all that is that it's really good. So especially in like dungeons challenge modes, you're just going to be an absolute god, and being a god is fun. So that's also part of it.
John, you've jumped in the mix. I'm not sure if you can talk. Let me know if you can. But do you agree, or we'll see if John can talk, but do you agree with Double that it's not for the faint of heart, but if you can pick it up and you know what the fuck you're doing, Brewmaster is a shitload of fun? Maybe he can't talk. That's right. Anyway, any of you other guys, is Double on the right note there?
No, he's completely right. Monk can be insanely fun. Your mobility, and not your just spamming your strafe keys, but like just the mobility that you have is pretty amazing as a monk, and it's super useful in almost any situation.
Gally, why do I get the
Also,
impression that... Sorry, you go, Double.
On the spamming strafe keys point, you actually get rewarded for your spamming your strafe frenetically on Brewmaster, because you spawn these little orbs that you have to run over. So actually doing the strafe spam is like part of the gameplay, which I think is really cool.
Okay, just make me look like an asshole. Thanks.
Gally, why do I get the impression that you will have dabbled in Monk at some point in your life?
I did in Shadowlands, and I was tanking, and that was kind of when they did one of the big changes that made the tank a little bit easier to play. I think it was in pre-patch, and I liked it. I did not touch it in MOP, so I have no experience in the current expansion. But I think Monk is also one of those things that it's probably well loved, and the people who like Monk are going to bed dreaming of I can't wait to play Monk in MOP. You know.
I was excited, and just the testing I've done with it on the beta has me far less excited than I initially was. I do want to try Mistweaver, and I'll level one a little bit. I'm not sure if I'm going to fall in love with it. Actually, Double, you'll be able to answer this question. I'm not sure if we covered this in our healer chat. Just real quick on the Mistweaver. I've got a mate, Voodoo, who's a monk enthusiast, and, I sort of said to him, I'm not really big on melee healers, the concept of the damage dealing healer is fine with me. I played Disc Priest in Kata for a fair bit. That's all well and good. But the melee healing, I'm just it feels like where a healer should not be. I try to jump on my Holy Paladin in Kata and get amongst it with your Crusader strikes, and it feels like you get punished for it. So I'm not really into it with the monk. And my friend was like, no. Look, I know that the monk's got all these mechanics that obviously encourage you and reward you for getting in there and getting amongst it and doing damage. But if you want to be the healer that sits up the back and just heals, don't feel like you can't do that with the monk. You can still be really strong and play that way. You don't have to go in there and throw fists. Is that the case, Double?
Yeah, absolutely. It's not like a Disc Priest where if you're a Disc player and you never press your atonement buttons, you're just hard trolling. On Mistweaver, you can 100%, if you just don't like fist weaving, which is what people call the melee to healing stuff, you can just not do that. You can sit in the back like a normal healer and channel your soothing mists, and spam your flash heals out there, generate a bunch of chi, and just use that chi to do a bunch more AoE healing. You won't do any damage, really. You can do some damage with your Jade Lightning, which is actually a really cool looking spell, by the way, and does do some... It does smart heal too, so you can do range damage that way if you want to. But yeah, especially in raid and in PvP, you're going to be mostly... you can mostly do that ranged healing and be just fine if you want to. If you prefer that playstyle, it's not. Well, you're not hard trolling if you do that. It's just fine.
Well, this is the thing. I get caught up because obviously we've got John in the audience saying, and I know, John, please tell me if I'm putting words in your mouth. I know what John would say were he able to talk today. Double, he would sit here and I'll channel him to you and say, Whoa, 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 whoa. Double. Look, that might be all well and good that you can sit up the back and mostly play your class. I'm sure you can mostly do the thing. However, you say you're not hard trolling as a monk in the back row, but if you're literally ignoring some of the abilities that you could weave into your rotation and you're playing 80% of your class, how are you not hard trolling?
Yeah, I mean, we play the game for fun. So if you have fun playing it a specific way, you can go ahead and do that just fine. The thing I will say is that in dungeons, and I think that if you actually do level a Mistweaver and you do start healing in dungeons, you will probably really like how it plays in dungeons, just because doing like you run in, you're doing a bunch of AoE and your AoE cleave just does insane healing. Whereas when you're in like a more single target environment, it can be a little bit unfun to do the melee stuff if you don't like that. But in dungeons specifically, you are kind of trolling if you don't do damage, because you just do crazy damage in AoE and a bunch of healing. But in raid, like if you just want to sit back and channel your soothing mists and just vibe out and spread your hots around and not even worry about blackout kicking or whatever, like that's just fine. Like you're not it's if you're like good and you can do good healing and be just fine playing that way.
Why would you
Um,
though? Like, why not just play a holy priest? Like, who
yeah, I
gets?
mean you could
Oh,
just
yeah.
play a different spec if you
Well,
I think
that's
that
sorry,
although
but
I do think that like the play pattern of spreading out your renewing mists and then uplifting is like pretty fun just by itself.
well, it
Um,
reminds me of sorry, Wacklow. I'll bring you into the mix, and because I think you're channeling exactly what John is saying in text chat as well, saying, look, I think I was spot on in the words I was trying to put in his mouth, and probably did a good John impersonation, where he's now saying, yes, you are trolling. If you're casting, you can heal. It's just not effective. If you want to be a caster healer, then just play a caster healer. And it reminds me, Wacklow, of sort of along the lines of, I don't know, and double. I'm with you. Don't get me wrong. The first and foremost rule of Fight Club is you play the game for fun. Like, fun rules at the end of the day. If you want to be a fucking monk that sits up the back and heals, fucking do it. Forget what everyone else has to say. But this reminds me a little bit of, is it fair to say, like the Ret Paladin argument in vanilla Wacklow, where like, obviously people, you play whatever the fuck you want to play for fun. If that's what gets you into the game, then do it, but do it knowing that others may think a certain thing of you. If you're the guy playing the Ret Paladin in vanilla going, I'm doing damage, I'm helping, and people are like, yeah, whatever, mate, you fucking idiot. Do you get the same stigma from a Mistweaver hunk sitting in the back row or not? Is that a bit of a bad analogy?
I think Ret Paladins in vanilla, there's like an inherent part of the class that's really bad in vanilla that they want to play and just like aren't able to play while doing things for their group. I don't know if there are people who are like, yeah, my idea of like what a monk does is sit in the back and kind of heal like a druid or a priest might. So I don't know. I'm much more sympathetic actually to people who say like, here's what like a paladin does in an RPG, and that's what I want to do. I play one in D&D, and I want to play it my Wrath Paladin the same way in this game.
what I'll say is caster Mistweaver is like nowhere near as bad as Ret Paladin in vanilla. It's like
Yes, I can
it's a
imagine.
different level order of magnitude.
Yeah,
Well, come on.
Basically, if you
things
play
are.
caster Mistweaver, you'll be sacrificing some amount of DPS, which you can do quite significant damage as a Mistweaver, especially in AoE. So you're going to be losing that damage. You also are going to be losing a little bit of mana efficiency and a little bit of overall HPS, but it's like there's no even comparison to like putting a Ret Paladin in your group in vanilla. It's just like totally awful.
Okay. Naismith, you were going to say something?
Oh no, I was just gonna like double back on that point where there are classes, like Classic is so poorly balanced that there are classes that are just active detriments to your group if you bring them, and there is no class like that I can think of.
Yeah, I'm taking the analogy a bit far for sure. Gally, let me throw it to you and just say, look, you can settle the argument, mate. Is it true? Do you agree that you are a subhuman piece of shit if you dare to play the style that you find fun in a fantasy role-playing game?
Yes. No, you know I'm all about playing the game for fun. So but I do also agree that, I think I've been around the block. And one of the big points that I think World of Warcraft, especially Classic, that I can just like my big take home is like if your group has expectations and they all kind of match, then you're good, right? If you go into a raid and your raid leader is cool, bringing a ret paladin, and you're that guy, cool, right?
Hmm.
But if you're going to be the ret paladin and the 39 other guys are going to be like, fuck this guy,
Yeah.
then you have a problem, right?
Right.
So if you walk into the group and you're like, I'm the Mistweaver, but I'm not punching anything, and your group's like, cool, whatever, that's fine. But if if it's 5%, 10% better, I have no idea. And your
Yeah.
group's like, you're griefing, get the fuck out, right?
Maybe the better analogy is in vanilla rocking up and saying, I'm a smite priest.
Yeah.
I mean,
And similarly, like, I mean, you'd have no mechanism to do this, but like personally, if I was doing like RDF in Pandaria and I had a monk healer tell me like, oh, I don't do damage, I would vote to kick them.
Well, that's what I was going to say.
Yeah,
Actually,
especially in
Wacklow.
dungeons, it's hard.
Well,
hard to not press like spinning crane kick. It's just so good and it does so much damage. Like what I would say is if it doesn't sound appealing to you to do melee DPS, I would just pick another healer because all the healers are pretty fun. And why would you purposely pick a healer where half the play you just don't really like or doesn't appeal to you? But also I would say that the play pattern of mixing in the melee and the casting stuff to me is really fun. So if that sort of appeals to you, I would definitely try out Mistweaver. If it doesn't, just play one of the other insanely fun, powerful healers in the game.
It would be more fun to me if I wasn't constantly getting fucking stunned or knocked over or just, I don't know. I feel like I just get savagely punished for being in melee range whenever I'm there as a holy paladin in Kata, and I don't know. Anyway, but like you kind of answered my question there, where I wasn't planning on doing it, and I agree with you guys. Like I'd rather just play another healer than take my friend's advice and just be like, oh fuck it, I'll just be the monk that stands in the back row. Because like my last question was going to be, if I'm going into normal dungeons or heroic dungeons and the other four guys see me literally not pressing one offensive ability, even in easy content, are they going to lightly judge me? And if the answer is yes, then I just won't bother doing it.
Yeah, the answer is definitely yes to that
All
one.
right, yeah, fair. I thought as much. This is why I thought it was odd when Voodoo was like, "Nah, you'll be right," and I was like, "You sure the others won't care?" But yeah, there we go. But look, outside of that conversation, is Mistweaver fun?
I personally think it's like super high on the fun tier list for the healers. At least as fun as Resto Druid.
Hitting that spinning crane kick, is that
Oh,
the
spinning crane kick is great.
It is one of the most satisfying things you can do in WoW, in my opinion.
It's like having with the warrior. It's like having Bladestorm without a cooldown. And like I know they warriors have whirlwind, but it's nowhere near as fucking satisfying to press as Bladestorm. And just like watching the big swirly and being able to spam it, it feels really good. I agree. So how do you other guys feel about, we'll start, I've put Brewmaster in S tier for fun. Mistweaver, do you agree that Mistweaver's a fun healer, you guys, or what?
As far as I'm concerned, yeah, it's pretty
right.
fucking fun.
All right, we'll put it in A tier. How about that? All right, the one thing we haven't talked about. I know I couldn't know less about any spec in the game than I know about Windwalker. I literally couldn't tell you one Windwalker ability outside of the ones that the other, like I know jab and blackout kick, and that's about it. Who the fuck can tell me anything about whether or not the Windwalker is fun? Does anyone know anything about Windwalkers?
No.
I don't have too much experience. What I will say is it's very similar to just like a rogue type playstyle. You have energy and combo points pretty much, and you just have like your builder spender going on. But there are some cool strengths to Windwalker. It's really cool and fun and powerful in PvP. You have a lot of mobility. You can roll around. You have Tiger's Lust and roll and and flying serpent kick, which is specific to Windwalker, which is 25-second cooldown. And if you've never pressed this ability before, definitely make a monk just to press Flying Serpent Kick once. It's really cool. You like jump up into the air and shoot forward, and you can press it again to like land. And it just feels really cool to be rolling around and flying serpent kicking around and tiger's lusting yourself. You feel super mobile, and the mobility is like kind of fun. It's not just like sprint. It actually has some like play to it. Also, I'll say that Touch of Karma is also really cool. It's a 1 minute cooldown that redirects all the damage you take to the enemy as a dot. And it's like capped at your HP. So this is in PvP really cool. You can like reflect damage basically on people.
Right.
And also in PvE, you can use it to like reflect AoE damage. So that's like a really cool, like flavorful little thing you can do. So again, not like super experienced with this spec, but I think it has a lot of really cool, like flashy things you can do with it. And it's decently powerful as well, especially in PvP.
So, like, my question would be, if you're a melee enjoyer, where, like, you know, and I'm sitting there at the character selection screen going, oh, you know, I know I'm only going to pick a melee DPS. I just want to play something that's fucking fun. You know, is there any reason to pick? Are people going to be picking a Windwalker ahead of, say, an Arms Warrior, ahead of, say, a subtlety rogue? You know, specs that are considered quite fun. Or is it more than not? Does Monk get carried by the novelty of the fact that it's new, or is it actually really fun to be a Windwalker?
I actually think it's pretty fun to be a Windwalker.
Okay.
Like, I find like Monk it's a different playstyle. While it is Double's right, it is very similar to Rogue in that it like you build resources, you spend them. I mean, it's not terribly. They're not reinventing the wheel with Windwalker, but it's still a fun class to play because you do have like the mobility alone. I think is really fun. Like rolling everywhere, like doing all the chi torpedo thing that they have. Always an entertaining button to press.
Also, I haven't played it. I've just been watching a lot of Scotty J. It looks like there's a lot of juggling to Windwalker, which personally doesn't appeal to me, but some people like the buff juggle sort of deal, resource buff juggle meta.
Okay, all right. Well, I'll throw it in the A tier. How about that? And we'll move on. And next we shall discuss Paladins. Very good. All right, I think Ret Paladins were one of the... I think there's like 4 or 5 really big winners from Kata to Mop. And I think Ret Paladin's one of them. Double, I can't remember if it was you who said this recently in a video where you mentioned, if it was you, whoever I was watching mentioned that just like dealing with holy power, the much maligned holy power that everyone kind of rolled their eyes at as we went into Kata, and then everyone worked out it's actually not that bad. Dealing with holy power is just infinitely more fun and enjoyable and simple in Mop. And not simple to the point that it's dumbed down and dumb. It's just like it feels better. And I wholeheartedly agree with that. I dicked around with the Ret Paladin the other day. I did not like particularly Ret Paladin in Kata. I liked it quite a bit more in Mop, and it feels like they've done a really good job with the minor tweaks they've done to the holy power system and the way in which you build and spend now. Double, was that you saying that the other day, or am I going crazy?
I probably said. I mean, I yap so much in my videos. I can't possibly remember all the stuff I've said. I've definitely said something similar to that in my Holy Paladin video, and I definitely agree. I think Holy Power, like, there's just a lot of little things they do with Holy Power that make it better. For Ret specifically, turning Divine Storm into a spender is huge, in my opinion. Divine Storm as a builder felt really bad in in Kata, in my opinion. It just is really weird and wonky. And only having one spender that does damage is like just kind of sucks on Ret Paladin. Having Divine Storm be like this big chunky thing that you hit that's like a reward for building your power. You hit it and you just blast AoE feels way better.
100%.
Also having 5 instead of 3 maximum holy power.
Huge.
it just makes everything feel so much better on all three specs.
Yeah.
Being able to bank some holy power, not overcapping all the time, is really cool. The other big major thing they do is that all of your builders have their cooldowns reduced by haste. It's not just Ret that has that. In Cataclysm, it's just Ret. All these specs get that, which I think is really cool. And it means that as you get more and more secondary stats, you're just going to scale crazily and feel way more powerful. But also that means that early on you are going to feel a little bit gimped on the Paladin specs, which is so it's sort of a mixed bag there where like early on you might feel a little bit underpowered, but later on once you scale up you're going to feel like super godlike.
I completely agree with you on the, particularly the Divine Storm being a spender now feels really good. But just tangentially, from what I've raised and what you've said there, Double, for everyone, Naismith, I might throw this to you and then just get the group to weigh in. Like, as I said, with the kind of eye roll that Holy Power gets when it's introduced to the game in Cataclysm, while I would probably still say I prefer mana as a Ret Paladin, I don't feel that the Holy Power system was as bad as advertised. People really talked about it like it was the boogeyman coming to the game when it came in. It does come in Cataclysm, right? When it arrives, people are like, oh my god, Holy Power. I thought it was a perfectly fine system. And like I say, I feel like it gets actually quite good in MOP. Not to the point, like I'd still prefer just a mana bar over the Holy Power system, but I think it's perfectly fine. Do you think that we, as classic players, or, fucking half classic players, if you will, now that we're playing MOP, I don't know, but do you think that we give the Holy Power system too much shit or not?
We do. And it's like, look, it got a ton of shit early, and that's because we don't like change. Like, let's be perfectly honest, the community around WoW is a bunch of giant babies some of the time. We complain about a lot of stuff. And, like, a fundamental change to the gameplay choices that you are going to make will upset a lot of people when it's new. Holy Power, I don't think was as big a deal this time because we knew it was coming.
How about you other guys?
My view is kind of it's worse than not having it, so that's that. It might be better than Kata, but it's still worse than the prior two, Wrath and TBC, which I feel like were both very unique, and now Ret Paladin sort of indefinitely is just one of a million builder spenders.
It's really build to spender the expansion, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it really is. There's a lot of homogenization along that axis. I think there's some problems with the builder spender stuff. It definitely, like, as you go down the expansions further and further, things definitely get super homogenized in that way. But overall, I think that Ret in MOP is definitely way better than Ret in Kata. I think the Holy Power system for Ret specifically, like, it's not super great. I think personally my favorite implementation of Ret is ICC Ret with the tier set that allows you to proc a reset on your melee swing of Divine Storm. I think that's like the best version of Ret there's ever been, honestly. So I would go back to that. But I think compared to Kata, MOP Ret is way better. It just feels a lot better. There's a lot of like it's kind of hard to describe why, but I just really don't like Ret and Kata, and Ret and Mop is a lot more. It's just like less bad in my opinion.
It's so
Also,
funny
I
you
think
say.
that
It's
the
so
type
funny
of
you say
players
that.
play Ret, they like the there's a certain class of person that I think really like. Ret is like the most popular spec in retail right now.
Oh, it's the most popular spec in
And I
every
think there's
expansion.
yeah, it's like it's super popular, and I think that the people that really like Ret, it's pretty good. In my opinion.
It's the class identity thing.
easily
People, a shitload more people than not will always vibe with the class identity of Ret Paladin because for whatever reason, no, I say for whatever reason, but I did this when I was younger as well. As a kid, you sit there at the character selection screen and you're like, hey, I want to be the fucking Holy Avenger, like the fucking King of Judgment going, I smite my foes with holy light. Like there's just something about that appeals to people, and I get it. It speaks to more people than like, oh, I want to be a fucking evil warlock or a fucking frost mage or whatever. I sort of get it, but I completely agree with you, Double, that I just can't put my finger on why I didn't fully enjoy Ret Paladin in Kata, but I just know that I didn't. So yeah, there you go. How about you other guys? Ret Paladin, I'm putting it in the A tier. Anything more to say about the improvements to Ret in MOP? Anyone going to dabble with it? It's all good. It's all bad.
I'll mention one thing, which is that if you like utility, like if you find it fun to be the person who can like send some off heals, you do some utility stuff, Ret Paladin's really good for that because your off healing is actually pretty good. And also your utility is really powerful. You can get double hand sack, and you can take a glyph that makes your hand sack no longer transfer damage. So you can do like really powerful external cooldowns on the tank or on somebody who's like taking a bunch of single target damage or something. So you have a lot of like really powerful utilities, right? So if you do enjoy that in PvE and PvP, being the guy who can like bop things and hand sack and do some off healing here and there, then Ret's going to be super fun for that.
And that's I feel like we haven't really touched on that much, but utility is more like democratized generally in Pandaria. Like Blood DKs and Frost DKs get AMZ now if they want it. A lot of those sorts of abilities are on a lot more specs because they've moved to the new talent tree system.
Yeah, it's everybody across the board has cool utility stuff they can do. It's not like, half the specs in Wrath and Kata just like don't really have that much, but in MOP everybody has some cool tool.
It's much more modular, I think, is the way I heard somebody put it. Like someone can fit the need that you have.
We're about halfway through all the specs and placing them in the fun tier list here, guys. And I thank you so much. You're all doing fantastically well. You've all been brilliant. Thank you so much for your contribution to the show. I want to take this moment maybe to sort of blow halftime and take you down a quick tangent that I just thought of that's come up in conversation organically just now. Naismith, I might throw this one to you. I feel like you might be a good person to throw in the deep end and kick off this topic of conversation for the next 5 minutes while we sort of, take a breath between specs. Mate, we're going into MOP, and it's very obvious from the chatter online that, even though MOP is a relatively beloved expansion, Kata was the fringe too far, as we know, for a lot of people. For classic gamers, it's the trilogy, and then everything after Wrath is retail. MOP is definitely far too modern for some people to enjoy, that really just came to this community for vanilla and then decided, oh yeah, fuck, I liked TBC. Oh yeah, I liked Wrath. I guess I'll do that and then I'll stop. And everything else is just, imagine liking Kata, imagine liking MOP. You're all just fucking retail enjoyers. Retail ruined the game. Retail is the devil, blah, blah, blah. The one thing I want to ask is, one of the reasons why people dislike, if you're a classic gamer, generally speaking, if you're a vanilla enthusiast, one of the reasons people dislike retail, I should say, is, the homogeneous factor of the classes. I should just try and say it. Homogeneity. I can't say. Someone say the word so I don't have to.
Homogeneity.
Thank you. All right. For some reason, I speak English relatively well, but just not that one word. Now, that's the word of the day here, and what this conversation is going to circle around. Is this the point in Mr. Pandaria where that has become a huge factor? Because it is obvious that things are changing. Like I said, I joked about how this is build to spend of the expansion, and so many classes now work on a build spend process. So many people now have a heal. So many people now have that interrupt. Like, there is a lot of homogenous behavior that has seeped into all of the specs now. Now, in saying that, doesn't bother me. I loved Kata, so I'm on the record for being okay with a bit more expansiveness or, copy pasting of abilities across all the specs. Do you think that MOP is the point, Naismith, that, I mean, it might have popped up in Kata, but do you think that we can point to Kata and MOP and say, okay, people have a point, there is a lot of homogenous, again, the word of the day, you'll have to say it, in this expansion, and I understand why people don't like it?
No, things change. Like the design philosophy has changed so much just from like Wrath to Mob. It's kind of difficult. I don't know. I don't want to make like a sweeping suggestion here, but
Let me put it. Sorry, let me summarize it better for you. It might be an easier way to answer this. Is it fair to criticize Mists of Pandaria as a bad MMO due to homogeneity?
well, it is, and it's. I think almost all of it comes down to the new talent system that we're using. And as I said earlier, it makes so many things modular. Like you're changing your talents between bosses because, just speaking from a warlock perspective, sometimes you need the death talent that you get, and sometimes you need the shield. And like I think it makes the specs themselves feel less different. However, the classes still feel fairly different, but the specs themselves sometimes, because your capstone talents that you a lot of times you're built around, are going to be the same no matter what.
I agree. I'll throw it to you other guys. Gally, let's get you in the mix and say, building on that, is vanilla clearly the greatest game of all time because only 3 classes have a stun, and only 4 classes have a heal, and blah, blah, blah. Or, like Naismith has said, does it not matter that homogeneity exists, but the classes still feel different, and that's the important part?
So that's a good question because
Sorry,
I
it's a
feel
tough
like
one. It's a tough one. I'm throwing you in the deep end.
it is. It is. Yeah, yeah. I think. Do I think vanilla is the best game ever created? No. And I think there's a lot of flaws with vanilla, but I think it's a great game, obviously.
But when a vanilla enthusiast points out the difference there, where they go, it's the greatest because only the fucking 4 classes can heal, and it's the greatest because not everyone has a stun. Like, what's the point where there's no differences between the class if everyone can do the same shit?
And then 90% of the population plays warrior, and that's the game, right? So, because everyone loves all the differences,
Right.
So, I think in a modern world, no. I think the homogeneity is fine as long as the stuff looks different, feels different. If everyone has if 70% of classes have a stun and a self heal, I think that's, if anything, a little bit like more inviting. It gets people to try new things. In the modern gaming, I think that's a good thing. And you're always going to have your classic purists, those type who love the differences, right? And I think there's a place for that. But I think today it's okay if things are pretty similar as long as they look and feel a little bit different. I think it's okay because most of the classes I think now are builder spender for the most part. And I mean it's really what warrior does not. And I'm trying to think of retail. I don't think
Fire
warrior.
Mage.
Okay. So and then those are kind of classes that have like their instant procs, right? You have your instant slam, your instant pyro. So even those are somewhat similar. I mean, you're looking at ranged and melee there, but yeah, I don't know. I think it's okay. I have no issue with it. So yeah, I think it's fine, and I think in today, I think that's a good thing. But I do think there's a place for it. I do think there's a place for all the differences, right?
Okay. Wacklow, true or false?
I think it sucks. I think it's horrible.
Yeah, go
like,
for it,
I
man.
think there's a lot. I think there's like a lot of social inertia that keeps people playing these different iterations of Classic. But I think like to the degree we're playing an MMO, once you get past TBC, like the degree of homogenization is just really bad for the social aspects of the game that are like inherent in playing an MMO. And I mean, Pandaria I think will be fine for what it is. But if Ashes came out and every class had a bunch of utility and every class had an interrupt and every class had a heal, everyone would be very disappointed because they're trying to get an MMO experience.
Do you think?
And I
Do you
think if you want
truly?
like a
Do you
lobby
truly think so?
Yeah, I think if you want like a high quality lobby experience, you can go play Destiny, and it's like better objective gameplay than WoW. And if you want a real MMO experience, you can play Vanilla WoW or OSRS. But I actually don't think there's anything. I'm gonna play Pandaria, and I'm sure I'll have a lot of fun. But I don't think it's like that great of a
Well,
game on any dimension. It's just like a hodgepodge of all of these, fine sub games all kind of thrown together.
The
I would
reason, if I
say
sorry,
MOP is
one
definitely
sec,
a
double,
game in-
one sec. I
It's
just want
definitely
to.
a game in trans.
Sorry, I just want to say this before I forget. One sec, double. Wacklo, just on the Ashes of Creation comment, the reason I balk at it is, I mean, whether or not you like retail World of Warcraft is another point. But, the fact is that millions of people play retail World of Warcraft. So that's why I sort of jumped on, if a new MMO were to come out and you were saying it was like retail Warcraft in that there was a lot of class homogeneity, you think people would shy away from it, when we've got the example right now here in modern times that they don't.
Retail's also not an MMO. I mean, dude,
Oh, come on now.
do you
Come
think
on
Curb Your
now.
Enthusiasm
What are
is
we
a worse
doing?
show than Friends?
What are we
Because
doing here
it's
saying retail's not an MMO? What are we doing?
like it
What do you-
just
what do you
doesn't
mean?
play like an MMO. It's primarily a lobby game.
It's
it's
an
an
MMO. It's
MMO
just
in
not an MMORPG.
yeah, it's an MMO in the way League of Legends and Dota are MMOs, but it's not an MMO in the way OSRS or Vanilla WoW are MMOs.
I think it's
They're just
still,
like they're totally different like genres of game.
Yeah.
I hear what you're
And
saying.
they function very differently.
It's still very much so an MMORPG. It just might not be the kind of RPG that you like, which is fine. But to say it doesn't even fit the classification, I think, is a bit of a stretch. Sorry, Double, you were going to say.
I don't know.
Please,
How
go
would you
nuts.
describe? I guess you can say there's like Eastern.
Are you
old
are you
school
not
Western,
playing
and
are you not playing a role in retail World of Warcraft?
Are you not playing a role in Destiny? Is it an MMO?
I mean, Destiny is also a first-person shooter, isn't it?
Yeah,
You
I
can-
mean,
you could have an
when
FPS
we're
combat
comparing
in
apples to
MMO, there's
oranges
nothing-
a little bit.
No, there's nothing inherently like different about that, but it's also like those go for different markets completely. Like there's a reason. What was it for a long time? Xbox 360 was the place you went to go play first-person shooters online, and not the PlayStation.
I guess the like narrow point I'm just trying to get at is like you can say like MMO's the wrong verbiage, but there's like Eastern MMOs, there's old school Western MMOs, and there's new school Western MMOs.
Well, I think old school and new school is the best way to sort of split them.
Yeah, and that's where I think the Ashes comparison is good, because I think Ashes is going to come out with the, let's say, the classic player base in mind, the ones who want the OG MMO, right? I feel like there is not going to be a lot of homogeneity. I feel like it's going to be big on PvP. I feel like it's going to be very different than what we're used to now, and that is, unless you've been playing Vanilla WoW and you have that like I'm the OG MMO player, I feel like you are going to unless you are that guy, you are not going to like Ashes. You're going to say,
wait.
I don't like the grind.
Are you saying?
I think this is boring.
Are you saying vanilla? Sorry, I'm confused. Are you saying vanilla gamers will or won't like Ashes?
Will.
Okay, I actually disagree. I'm shocked to hear this a little bit.
Okay.
Well,
I
like
think Ashes is so PvP heavy that even like a lot of vanilla people might not like it. I think
yeah,
Ashes is going to be very
I don't
niche.
think Ashes of Creation is being built for the vanilla World of Warcraft base.
Maybe the OG MMO searching. I haven't looked at Ash's stuff in a while, but people say it's a lot of grinding. It's big group, and that's the community, right? That's what people like about Classic is standing in Ironforge and seeing the big guilds get together, right?
Oh yeah. I just don't think it would be old school. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So,
I gotcha.
What you're talking about here is something like WildStar, if any of you remember that MMO from a while ago. It's a one that caters much more heavily to a grind and I don't even know how to say it, like a classic sense of huge groups doing stuff together, rather than just the sitting in the capital city waiting for shit to happen.
Right. So sorry, Double. I cut you off before. Sorry, mate. You were going to say?
Yeah, I think that there's definitely some good points here. I think that our MOP is sort of like a game in transition where if you look at retail, and the homogeneity thing is it's sort of it exists for a reason, and the reason it exists is that the game is transferring to being more focused towards like complex, competitive, difficult end game encounters that require you to have certain tools. And if you're required to have those tools and you want to have class diversity, you just every class just needs to have like a movement ability, a defensive. You need to have more options for raid cooldowns, like in Wrath for Infest on Lich King. You just need a cooldown for every infest, or you can't kill the boss in 0%. And so that means you have to bring X amount of paladins because they're the only ones that have a cooldown that actually works for infest. So in MOP, like you could bring a rogue, and rogue could smoke bomb. So if you have a friend who plays rogue and doesn't want to play paladin, then it works better. So there's like there's pragmatic reasons why homogenization exists. The problem is that homogenization, and this is I think it's actually less true in MOP than it is in retail. The best example of this I can think of is I think actually one of the most flavorful and RPG-esque abilities ever added to the game was in Legion, and it was Surrender to Madness. I don't know if anybody played Shadow Priest in Legion, but it was an ability where as a
the
Shadow
insane
Priest you
Shadow
would go
Priest ability.
insane and you'd get like this big power up, but once you drained all of your insanity, you would just straight up die and you couldn't be rezzed. And to me, that was like a crazy. It was a draw to the game. Like it was so cool. It was so RPG flavorful. Like you're a Shadow Priest, you're actually going to go insane and die at the end of this cooldown, but it's going to make you do like crazy damage. And that was super cool, and it was really like RPG flavorful. But they had to remove it from the game because the fact that it was so unique and so flavorful means that it was impossible to balance. And so in retail, you have this hierarchy where balance is placed over RPG, whereas in vanilla, it's just obviously the other way around, right? Balance is very secondary to the RPG elements of the game. And if you like difficult content, you just kind of like have to have on some level balance be more important than RPG, which like there's sacrifices to everything. And part of the sacrifices that retail has made and that MOP has made in that it's more similar to retail is that you do sacrifice some of the RPG aspect of the game to have the ability to bring a comp of like your friends playing their favorite class and also be able to kill bosses. So, but the thing about MOP is that the way MOP does homogenization is actually better than retail because in MOP, every class gets OP, crazy powerful, game-breaking abilities, so everybody gets to feel overpowered, even though you all have like your defensive, and a lot of people have raid cooldowns or like single target defensive cooldowns or whatever. All those things feel better than they do in retail because in retail everybody kind of gets like the Amazon basic defensive where like you get alter time on a mage in retail, but it's like the watered down, nerfed 10 different times so that it's more quote unquote balanced version of altered time. Whereas in MOP, you get the one that's broken and overpowered. And so I think that sort of like it definitely makes it takes the sting out of homogenization a little bit when everybody has like their own broken thing. And I think that's very true. It's definitely telling that in WoD they had to remove a lot of this stuff and nerf a lot of this stuff and do so much pruning. And in that way, I think MOP is actually a lot of people say MOP is like the beginning of retail or CAT is the beginning of retail. In my view, MOP is like the end of the end of like classic, where in WoD, it's almost like the MOP classes are like this Voltron, Frankenstein version of the vanilla classes, where like you have all this insane stuff bolted onto them. They're in a mech suit, they're like flying through space. And then in WoD, they just kind of like they level the playing field, and then in Legion, you get like all these new designs. And well, all these problems do exist in MOP. I think it's not as bad as like I don't know. I personally think it's not that bad, and I think it definitely serves the parts of MOP that are really good, which is like raiding and challenge modes and PvP. Like those things, those end game systems definitely benefit from some amount of homogenization. So
I'll throw
their sacrifices. So.
Very well said, mate. I'll wind this one up. Thank you so much for getting off on the halftime tangent with me, everyone. I'll add in John's comment for a bit of spice at the end and let you guys say anything if anyone wants to say anything about this. John says, look, that's all well and good, but let's just say that vanilla is by far the most homogenized version of the game. If you want to feel cool because you can push disarm trap for one encounter, then go for it. But remember, everyone has healing for a first aid. Sorry, everyone has first aid for healing. Everyone takes engineering and uses those items, and everyone just gets their defensive potion of whatever. We're all effectively, pushing the same buttons, and homogenization is a thing in vanilla, very much so. And everyone rolls a warrior, I guess you could say, as we said before, Gally. But what do you guys think about that?
Yeah, that's actually a really great point, which is that basically in vanilla, you're just playing an engineer alchemist, and your class is like secondary to that. Your class is like this off thing where like really you're just a person who uses flasks and faps and like goblin sappers, and your class is just the thing you add on to that.
We've triggered Wacklow's going to go nuts.
Which is like, it's a joke point, but I do think that there is like the way you get homogenization in vanilla is through professions, because everyone has access to them and they're very powerful.
Wacklow, go in and swing for the classic enthusiasts. I'll just say, like, there is a point there.
Engineering's BIS still. It's been BIS every X-Pack, and it will be in MOP too.
Yeah, but you understand the overarching point.
I understand the overall point, and sure, like Warlock and Frost Mage play basically identically in PvE, but like play the whole X-Pack once over on a Rogue, and then on a Warrior, and then on a Mage, and then on a Druid, and tell me that you had a similar experience. I just don't buy it.
Fair enough. All right, guys, look, let's move on back to the classes. We're still knocking off Paladin. Double, tell us a thing about Holy. We know all about it from your videos, but is it fun?
Yeah, I actually think Holy Paladin is super fun. I think it's like up there with Druid and Mistweaver in terms of being really, really fun. It's very high APM. You have all these builders you're spamming, you got all your spenders. And a really nice thing about Holy Paladin is it has two like distinct playstyles that you can choose between, which a lot of the healers, like, you have some talents that will change your cooldowns up a little bit, maybe like one or two different abilities, but the core playstyle is the same no matter what talents you pick. Whereas for Holy Paladin, your 45 row talents are going to dramatically shift how you play the game, like completely. Whereas Eternal Flame, which is a replacement for your Wog that does the same healing as Wog, but puts a really long 30-second hot on the player. If you take that, you're going to be playing a style where you're like building up Holy Power and doing like one or two Holy Power Eternal Flames on targets just to blanket the whole raid with these little hots. And so you're going to be playing like a Resto Druid style, and that's kind of interesting and can be fun if you like that type of gameplay. But if you like the more like melee, like Judgment, up in your face style of Holy Paladin, you can take Selfless Healer, and what that does is it like powers up your Judgment a lot. So your Judgment's going to make Holy Power if you take this talent, and also it's going to give you a buff that just like juices up your casted heals and makes them instant cast. So two very different playstyles, and I think they're both fun, and they're also both very different from each other. In one, you're going to be spending all your Holy Power on LOD, which is like your AoE spender, and on the other one, you're going to be spending all your Holy Power on Wog, and you're like a hot healer. So I think that like the fact that you can just choose between two different playstyles is, I think, a big plus for fun. If you get bored of one, you can just do the other, and they're decently close, like mathematically, so you're not like sacrificing too much. You also have like incredible utility, and you get access to a whole bunch of new cooldowns. So you get like your 75 row is going to juice up your cooldowns a lot. You can get like crazy improved wings. You can get the Cataclysm Ret cooldown, which makes all your builders generate 3 Holy Power, which is super powerful. And you can also get Divine Purpose, which is a proc that will just make your next Holy Power spender have 3 power. So you get like some dynamic stuff in the rotation, which is a little bit more fun and dynamic than Cataclysm. So I think overall, it's like it's just really fun high APM active healer. And you have a lot of different tools. You're going to be using like all your spells. It's not like Kata where you just kind of like spam Holy Radiance if there's AoE, and if there's single target, you just spam Divine Light, and like press your Holy Shock on cooldown. There's more activeness to the rotation, and you're going to be like swapping your beacon around a lot and doing a lot of little things. So if you like high APM kind of fiddly healers, then you'll like Holy Paladin, I think. Although the elephant in the room is that it's like probably the worst healer, so
Right.
which is unfortunate.
Naismith, you mentioned that you've dabbled with Holy Paladin in expansions gone by. Does the mop Holy Paladin intrigue you at all?
Of course it does. Pretty much just for the reasons that Double just covered. Like, you actually get to like be active and do stuff other than just hit spam Holy Light that you had to do for like so much of Wrath. Or I don't know. I didn't really play Holy Paladin in TBC, so was that just Flash of Light, or was that Holy Light there too? But yeah, it's an actually interesting spec to play, even if it's not ideal.
Very good.
I feel like the tough part is you've been on top for 2 full X packs, and now you're like right down to the very bottom.
Well, I mean, to be fair, it's about fucking time.
Fair enough.
What about the Prot Pally? I mean, to be fair, like I said, I shat on Prot Paladins earlier in terms of I said that, in TBC, a fucking idiot could play a Prot Paladin and perform well, and I was that fucking idiot. I loved Prot Paladins in TBC. I've always been somewhat predisposed to them in terms of tanking ever since. I, don't play one in vanilla because they're fucking terrible in vanilla, but for every iteration afterwards, they're great. I think they were so much fun in Kata, and I haven't played one in MOP, but I presume it's more of the same, if not better. Again, it's just a presumption, but, it was interesting to see again that one of those tier lists that you highlighted Double earlier from a private server content creator saying, I think Prot Paladins are actually the best Paladin, and not giving a fuck who's the best or worst, but I just appreciate, I don't know, I'm the weirdo who appreciates a good rotation. And the Prot Paladin, you could set in my opinion, for the most part, outside of like Avengers Shield procs or whatever, you can set a fucking watch to your rotation as a Prot Paladin, and I really like that. So, the question is, do you find it fun? Does anyone play it?
I think I haven't played many of the tanks too much, so I'd be interested if Wogler or Naismith has played the tanks extensively. What I'll say is that the way that haste reduces the cooldowns of your builders, again, mentioned this with Ret and with Holy, you are going to have a lot more fun in like Siege and Throne of Thunder later on with Prot Pally than in early. Early, you can feel kind of starved a little bit of your holy power, but later on, like, you get this really crazy power scaling where at the beginning you're kind of weak, but at the end you're just godly and you're doing insane damage and insane healing and you're unkillable. So that power progression is kind of fun, right? It's like the RPG aspect of the game where you're gaining player power. That's just satisfying, and it releases dopamine when you get more and more powerful. So that's super fun. But I also think that Prot Paladin is just, the utility's really high, and you can do really good like off healing and spot healing. You're really good off tank. So if you like that off tank role, Prot Paladin's really good for that. And also then later on when you get scaled up, you can main tank and you can just blast and be god mode.
Naismith, have you played one?
I have. Not as much, but as I have other classes in mob. But no, he's right. Like you get to start stacking haste. Like you do pretty much the entire expansion, but specifically in like Throne of Thunder, you start being able to do some really great stuff. And the talent that gives you like like the 2 bops that you can do lets you do some really fun stuff like tanking. Specifically in Throne of Thunder, it's I think on Horadon. Like you can have pretty much your Pally tank the boss the entire time because they can just drop the stacking debuff on themselves whenever they need to. It's due to having multiple bops. It's a really fun class that has some great utility.
Very
Because
good.
paladins always have, insane utility.
There you go. Wacklow, anything on?
Also,
So you go double.
there's some nice quality of life stuff, like the cooldown of consecration being like 30 seconds in kata just feels so bad.
Yeah, it feels
And
fucking awful.
It's back to 9 seconds, which is an insane quality of life. That just feels so much better.
It's underspoken how shit that 30-second cooldown is in kata. Sorry, keep going double.
Yeah, and there's also a couple of things to mention here. Like, if you did play kata, if you were tanking in kata, the block tanks feel really, really bad when you don't have like really high mastery. And that's just like not really as much of a thing in MOP because more of your tankiness is around your active mitigation as opposed to just your base like stats, like your dodge, parry, block, all that stuff. So if you're just doing your basic active mitigation stuff, you won't feel like as flimsy and squishy early on the block tanks. And Prop Alley is obviously a block tank, so it just overall like it feels a lot better early on than in Cataclysm. Even though I did say it was weaker early, you still have all the tools you need to be a good tank early on. Your power scaling is a lot more steep than some of the other tanks.
Fair enough. Wacklow, anything on Prot before we move on?
Not really, because
All
it's so
good.
weak early on. I haven't looked at it much.
All good, all good. Guys, we're going to rip through Priest a little bit again. I want to there's two classes left I really want to sink my teeth into, but we'll rip through the ones we can. Zug, we covered Priest fucking for the most part in the healing chat. So is it fair for me, we won't really get into it. We'll just say, look, in the fun factor department, let's put Disc Priest in the S tier and Holy Priest in the fucking average, or what do you reckon?
I actually think Holy Priest is it's like good. It's definitely not average, it's good. It's fun and there's some complexity there and it has a lot of like different play patterns with your chakras. So I think it's like maybe up there with like Ret.
Okay, all right, fair enough. We'll put it in the A tier, you reckon? You find it quite fun?
It's definitely like I literally don't think there's a healer that's below like the A tier. Maybe Resto Shaman.
All right.
I've heard, like anecdotally, but a lot of people in my guild have said like if only Holy Priest were better, I would love to play. It seems like a lot of people love the play style.
Yeah, they hate the throughput.
I might honestly actually swap Holy Priest and Disc.
Oh, really? Okay, let's go nuts.
Disc is going to be very polarizing. The people that love it are going to love it, and the people that don't like it are going to be like pretty low on Disc because it's very atonement focused.
Right.
And atonement is a smart heal, so like you're not targeting it.
Yeah.
So it does all the thinking for you, and there's a lot of there's little things you can do to have like skill expression, but Disc is very much like you're just kind of turreting, spamming Holy Fire and Penance.
It sounds like I actually need to try Holy. Are you saying like if you just fucking forget throughput, if you forget about numbers, Holy's actually a shitload of fun?
Yeah, it's super fun.
Oh, okay, there you go.
Especially if you want a PvP, Holy Priest in PvP is really fun. Because the big problem with Holy in PvE is your chakras have a 30-second cooldown, so you can't really swap between them very much. But in PvP, it's reduced to 5 seconds. So you can just swap between your chakras all the time, like do damage and then do AoE and then swap to your single target and press some renews. And it's just in PvP, Holy is like Giga S tier in my opinion. It's like the most fun. But in PvE, it's just a little bit. It also takes a while to get going. Like early on, it's not as good. It does scale pretty well later. I think Disc Priest is like on average pretty mid because the people that love it are gonna love it and the people that hate it are gonna hate it. So.
Very good. Well, let's focus in on the Shadow for a second. I'm not sure if any of you guys have played Shadow. All I'll say is like I don't want to dump on it too much because I'm sure it's great for Shadow enthusiasts, but like Shadow for me in MOP is probably one of the bigger letdowns in that it was explained to me by all the content I watched that Shadow gets so much more fun. It's so brilliant now. Oh, the Shadow Orbs, the way that Devouring Plague works with everything. Oh my God, the instants, the procs, the blah, blah, blah. I went, oh, great. That sounds fucking phenomenal. It for me personally, performs or appears to perform far better on paper than it does in practice. And like maybe you need gear or something, but like I just wasn't getting the procs as often as I would like. And when you do get them, it's kind of like, where do I plug this in? I fucking hate Mind Spike and the way it works in that it cleanses your fucking dots off them. Oh, but if you get the proc, then it doesn't cleanse your dots. But then I never get the proc. And then, I don't know. It's a weird one for me. And like, Devouring Plague, like you literally just wait for 3 Shadow Orbs to then spend your Devouring Plague, but that's like the only spender, I think. I don't know. Maybe I'm getting it wrong, but it just didn't fucking do it for me. Does anyone else have anything to say about Shadow? Tell me why I'm wrong.
I think you're wrong in
so.
PvE, but a lot of people love Shadow in PvP and Pandaria. I mean, God Comp comes online and just looks really fun.
There are so many fights that you can multi-dot so effectively on as well that I think it's a pretty fun spec, and I love seeing the little shadow guys walk towards people.
Oh yeah, everyone loves that. And what's the other ability you get where you turn invisible but you get to move around?
Dispersion?
No. It's the one where you leave a ghostly form.
Spectral guys.
That's the one.
Yeah,
Dispersion
I think
gets
Shadow
kind of
Priest
ruined.
is.
Sorry, go on.
I think Shadow Priest is insanely fun and like a lot of this is true for like Warlock and a lot of the dot based specs. They're really, really fun when you can multi-dot, and when you can't, it's just kind of like mid. But the thing is, in MoP, there's a lot of fights where you can multi-dot and it's like super effective. So also Priest definitely gets better with gear.
Yeah,
significantly.
I got that impression.
But I thought they didn't
so-
really come online until about Throne of Thunder when you're
they're
your
one of those
secondary
specs
stats.
that's balanced around the broken trinkets and the higher secondary stats. But I do think in PvP Shadow Priest is like insane. It's really high skill cap in PvP.
Yeah.
But if you're a good Shadow Priest player, it's like Giga S tier, right? So
100%. I hate fighting them because everyone who's driving a Shadow Priest, okay, it's very noticeable with Shadow Priest in particular that everyone who's playing one knows what the fuck they're doing. Whereas all the other classes, you can see the fucking, the guy that's just mucking around and doesn't really know what he's doing, pressing the wrong abilities, and you're like, oh, this guy's clearly never played the class before or doesn't battleground a lot or whatever, and they're just fucking around, having a bit of fun, whatever. But every fucking Shadow Priest is really good at it because they're really into the class and they love it and they tear that shit apart. So forget what I say about Shadow Priest fun. If you're into it, you're into it. Where should I rank this one? What do you reckon, guys?
A.
A-tier?
I'd say B. I think of all the casters, it's kind of the least inspired, but just me.
yeah, I think it's a little in PvE at least. It's just a little bit of like Warlock light.
Sinner, how are you, man? Are you there?
I am here.
How's things, mate? What classes have you got your eye on for MoP?
If I'm gonna play MoP, I'm probably gonna end up playing Warlock again or Elemental Shaman.
Warlock or Shaman. There you go. Well, we're getting to those two classes, so very good. You've arrived just in time. Well, we shall get there, my friend. All right, guys, let's move on let's do Rogue real quick. We've probably got no one here that plays Rogue, but that's all right.
I do.
Oh, very good, very good. Ubiquitous was hanging out for some good Rogue chat, so you'll have to do him justice, Naismith.
I'm not going to.
I'm sure you will. I'm sure you will. Look, let's start off with. I'll let you be the person who chooses here. What's the most fun Rogue spec in MoP?
I love subtlety. Personally, I thought it was a lot of fun, but I also I'm a shit rogue player. I'm terrible at melee classes personally. So I would not know how to do that to play it properly or even give you a good example of what you should be doing.
That's all right. We don't need to be told what to do. We just want to know whether it's fun or not.
It is fun, and it's always fun to be able to stealth. You have so many stuns that you can do, and after playing Warlock for years, where we had no great defense for that. I take a lot of catharsis in killing other cloth wearers as a rogue.
Very good. I mean, subtlety obviously still being a thing in PvE now, which is, caused many rogues to celebrate. I think it came online in Kata, and it's very much so still a thing in MoP. Assassination, everyone just says, is just the simple one. If you want to sort of not think and pump, then play Assassination. Anyone else on the rogues here? Where are we throwing these? Where are we ranking these ones in the fun? Anyone like considering playing a rogue or not really? No, that's all right. Ubiquitous, go fuck yourself.
One thing I'll say here is that a really nice thing that happens in MoP is that before, if you wanted to do like any AoE, you just had to be combat pretty much. And in MoP, every spec gets AoE. You all get like Fan of Knives generates combo points, which is huge. And you get Crimson Tempest, which is an AoE finisher. So like Sub and Assassination can both do AoE. So that's just a really nice change to Rogue. And you also just get like insane mobility and utility and quality of life stuff with like redirect and shroud of concealment and burst of speed, and everybody gets cheat death, which is insane. All your stealth stuff like subterfuge is crazy. Like Rogue just gets so many cool things in MoP. If you are a Rogue enjoyer, I think MoP Rogue is like giga, like god tier fun personally in both PvE and PvP. But I think that combat and assassination are definitely like a lower tier. I think Sub is really, really high up there.
All right.
It does.
Sorry, Sinner, go for it.
Rogue also get the like kind of nice quality of life thing with if something dies with your combo points on it, as long as you haven't hit any new targets, you can still use your finisher like slice of dice. That was MoP, right?
I think so. I'm not sure.
I think you can redirect them off.
Yeah, he's definitely got redirect.
But you can also use like slice and dice too, I think, when they're dead. But I'm not. I haven't played Rogue in so many years in MoP.
All the Rogue fans will be getting triggered, but that's all right. Look, it doesn't matter, because the one question I've got is, I feel like combat is in the same class as like Arcane Mage, where like fucking nobody, there is no content out there about combat Rogue in MoP. I feel like nobody plays it. And I know you guys have just said like subtlety and assassination are infinitely more fun, so why would you bother? But like, what's the deal with combat Rogue in MoP? Is it just fucked?
Undertuned.
Okay.
I think.
All right. So most people wouldn't be caught dead playing one in any situation.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like a Holy Priest thing where subtlety is so good that all the other specs kind of get left behind, and nobody knows anything about them. And like private server player base is so small that like, if the 5 good rogue players aren't playing the spec, then there's just no info about it.
Fair enough. Guys, Double, we'll do it again. We won't go over Resto Shaman. Everyone, if you want to hear more about Holy Priest, Discipline Priest, and Resto Shaman, go back and listen to the episode 2 episodes ago with Double Zug, where we go over all the healers in MoP. Look, you said an interesting thing about 10 minutes ago, though, where you said actually you don't think that the rest, like, whilst you have a lot of love for Resto Shaman in MoP, you don't find it particularly fun. Is that right?
Yeah, I just put it in like good tier. It's not unfun, but it's just the other healers are more exciting in my opinion. Although if you like being disgustingly OP, then Resto Shaman does move up the ranks a little bit. But just in terms of the gameplay, it's like pretty basic. You just kind of put Healing Rain down, Riptide, kind of sit there pressing Lightning Bolt.
Yeah.
Sending a chain heal here and there.
Fair enough.
It's pretty basic.
Fair enough. Now,
but
yep.
Well, one thing I'll say is that it doesn't have. It's not like annoying like it is in Kata. It's just less exciting.
Fair enough. Sinner, we'll throw it to you, mate. Shaman, you've got your eye on a Shaman for MoP. Tell me why. Elemental enhancement. What are you looking at? Why does it look fun to you?
I just like lightning flying everywhere. Like I don't particularly care about the balance or anything. I just like the lightning. I don't even know. I think they are pretty good, aren't they?
They are.
Elemental.
Ellie has a lot of great utility.
They look pretty shit hot. They look pretty good. what do you know of the Ellie Shaman? I mean, it sounds like not much, you know, you just like the class fantasy of it all. Do you know anything about Ellie going into mob?
I played it a bit as an alt back in like regular mob or whatever you would say, and I remember having fun. I don't remember specifics at all. Most of my time was spent on Shadow Priest, Warlock, and Shaman, but Shaman is the only one I don't really remember why I thought it was fun.
Here's an interesting tangent for all of you on this one as we bring up the elemental shaman, and obviously one of the big changes they got is the ability for, you know, regardless of what spec you are, I believe everyone can just cast lightning bolt on the move now, which is a huge change.
Yep.
And I talked again about, you know, how mop is the build to spender expansion, but another huge thing about the expansion is it's kind of mobility, the expansion as well, in terms of casters, where they've looked at all the casters, and it seems very obvious to me that the design philosophy at the time was the devs sitting around a table designing mop going, guys, I think planting your feet and casting is kind of passe these days. Let's move MMOs into the fucking modern world. People want to move. People want to fucking get their feet going and do the thing. I don't think standing in place, casting 5 frostbolts in a row is really what people find engaging anymore. Let's do something about it. So, you know, Warlocks, they're level 90 talent. You can pick up Kil'jaeden's Cunning and cast fucking Shadow Bolts, Incinerates, and Malefic Grasp or whatever on the fly. Shaman, congratulations. You don't even need to take a talent. You can just cast Lightning Bolt on the move now. You know, fucking, like I said, hunters now don't have to stand around and do their 2-second cast. Mages, you can fucking move and cast now, can't you, or not? Is there Scorch, obviously?
Well, you had Scorch, and now you have like one of your talents is a charge system, so you like spend it, and then for your next cast, you can move while casting.
Yeah, so here's another, you know, let's pretend we're all fucking game designers here, and my big meta question is, was this a great move for World of Warcraft in terms of saying to casters, we're going to get you moving? Or is this another thing that people point to and go, oh, the death of World of Warcraft. Imagine letting casters move around.
To me,
I think the reason why... Oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
I think the whole issue started... This might be my memory being complete garbage, but wasn't the problem that melee was infinitely more popular than casters? Not in terms of like power or anything, but just the fact that you had a flood of melee players wherever you went. If you wanted to do the dungeons, you had 3 warriors, 12 paladins, 75 rogues asking to join, and you were like, oh, we need a ranged DPS for whatever this is. I think it was just an attempt to get casters to become more mainstream and popular. Just make them overpowered.
Naismith, you going to say?
I was going to say, to me, it seems like they're worried about, like, there are classes that just don't move. And as you said, like, a lot of people don't find it fun to just sit there and look at which ability is coming off cooldown right away. And, like, so they gave the mobility to casters, and it also corresponded when their design philosophy for bosses changed, where you need a lot more individual responsibility, and you need the ability to be able to move and still do your rotation properly. And I think, honestly, it was just kind of the inevitable consequence of bosses becoming more and more complex.
The interesting part of it to me is the only thing I'm wondering is, from a layman's perspective, if you'd said to me, oh, we're going to basically allow the casters a shitload more movement, they can now spam their filler spells on the fly, I would have said, well, obviously that breaks PvP, right? Yet MOP is viewed as the greatest PvP expansion of all time. And I'm like, again, as a doofus, on paper, aren't casters just running around fucking playing keep away and blowing everyone up? But obviously everyone has enough utility that it's not a problem. So PvP is not broken despite this. Is that correct?
I'll say 2 things to that. One is that the filler spells are now like kind of shitty compared to, like, you know, vanilla, Frostbolt was a lot of your, or Shadowbolt was a lot of your damage. Now
Yeah.
it's a lot less of your damage.
Yeah.
The other thing is the good PvP casters, by and large, have been like that. Aphly and Kata, Frost Mage, and TBC. They're the dominant casters usually, or the casters that have a bunch of instants, so they can do that anyway. So now maybe
Yeah,
you just
actually
have more
evens the
parity.
playing field a bit.
Yeah.
Fire Mage and Kata too. Like people are just running around. Sure, you're scorching, but also a lot of your abilities are just instant cast.
Fair enough.
Which
Also,
actually-
the melee are broken in half too, so they have their own broken stuff they're doing. So it's like balanced because everyone's broken.
Yeah. Sorry, someone else is going to say something there. I missed it.
I was gonna just continue. I was just gonna say I actually prefer having instant casts as a way of giving mobility to like, oh, I'm casting Scorch while I move. It just feels a little odd.
Right. I personally like the feel of it, but I know what you mean. Now, what was I going to say? Well, I mean, like I said, I poo-pooed the hunters for having constant movement. I like that, like, you know, say, for example, with the Destro Warlock, I still have to plant my feet for Incinerate and Chaos Bolt. You know what I mean? So I'm not, like, constantly on the fly.
Not for Incinerate.
Sorry. Immolate, I mean.
Oh, yeah.
Good catch. Yeah, they don't miss a fucking beat here on Countdown to Classic. I love it. What was I going to say? Let's finish off on the Ellie Shaman. Look, lightning bolts on the fly, very powerful. Anyone with any experience want to be able to tell Sinner what to expect in the fun department for this one? Where am I ranking this one?
I think
would say
Ellie
A.
is. Yeah, I think it's A. It's very simple, kind of like Kata, but it just feels really good to play. Like you get your mastery, which is the same as it is in Kata, where you can proc a second spell, but you also get Echo of the Elements, which is a talent that does like exactly the same thing. So you can double proc. So when you're just spamming your chain lightning, like it's super simple, right? You're just pressing one button, but just watching your lightning like get like 5 or 6 chain lightnings with 2 casts, and it just feels really good. And you also get Ascendance, which is super cool, which is your on use that turns you into like a flame dude, and your lava burst has no cooldown, and your chain lightning becomes lava beam, which is kind of a cool, flavorful cooldown. So I think overall it's simple, but it just feels really good. Feels very impactful. All your spells feel good.
Here's a controversial take for Enhancement Shaman, and I want you to yell at me if I'm wrong here. I'm looking at 2 specs as maybe we've talked about some that would fit this as well, but I'm looking at 2 specs in particular that I feel have changed the least from Kata to Mop. And I'm looking at you, Enhancement Shaman and Affliction Lock. Tell me if you think I'm crazy for saying that. Is Enhancement Shaman basically the same thing? No one's sure because no one plays Enhanced, so they don't know, right?
Yeah, I don't play Enhanced, so I don't know.
It's pretty niche spec.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, isn't it like a kind of a meme spec, one of the few meme specs?
Fucking nobody
it does
talks about it.
really high burst damage, and it does scale well later. I think Ellie's better like early on, but especially in Classic, if we do get to the point where people are doing like the degenerate speed killing stuff, like in farm when fights are really short, enhancement could be pretty good. It's also like it has the shaman utility, right? Storm Lash, AG, so it can't really be that bad. But I do think it is kind of clunky. Like I have a friend who is in beta with me, and we were doing some heroics, and he's like a enhanced shaman enjoyer. He's like trying to decide if he's going to play enhanced, and he was saying it just feels clunky. So I don't know if that's a
Yeah.
gear thing, or just a spec problem, but I think Enhance is just, it's not like fully all the way there. I think it's actually really fun in Wrath, and it's very like janky in Wrath, but there's it's kind of fun. And I think in Kata and Mop, it's just, there's some mysterious thing, undefinable thing it's missing. But
Yeah.
I could be wrong. Maybe there's some savant enhancement shaman out there that's gonna show the world how awesome it is.
No,
I
fair-
hope so.
fair enough.
I
Look,
hope you do if you're that guy.
Nobody talks about it. We'll put it in the good category because we don't know much about it. So fucking each to their own. Go sort that out. If you want to play Enhancement Shaman, go hunt down some information. Sadly, we'll be a bit dry on that one, but that's okay. Like I said, it's actually the more and more content I watch, I just don't see people talking about Enhanced Shaman. Look, and I mean, well, there you go for Shaman, Sinner. But as our friend Excessive Censorship reminds us in Twitch chat, you've also got Ascension to look forward to in Elemental that I'm not sure if we mentioned. That's a very, very fun cooldown that people like to pop. So I'm sure you'll have fun as an Ellie Shaman in MOP. Guys, we'll move on to Warlock and just the thing that I just said. I don't know if you guys would have your own suggestions, but tell me if I'm going crazy. I feel like Affliction Warlock really hasn't changed much from Cata to MOP. Certainly, you look at what was done with Destro Warlock and it's night and day, but Affliction Warlock's more or less the same in my personal opinion. You get Shadow Bolt taken away from you in the Nightfall Shadow Bolt thing. Not that it was that big of a deal in Cata, but like, it's fine. I like Affliction, but when we get to Destro, I much prefer Destro. Does anyone have anything in particular to say? I just really feel like it's a copy paste from Cata. Anything on Affliction?
I mean,
Yeah.
I played Affliction Warlock for a good portion of MOP when it was current content. Back when I was a actual raid leader. But yeah, it's a wonderful multi-dotting class that does some really good stuff in MOP, but it's not a class that's for everyone because it's so fiddly and you have to like just keep a careful eye on your dots at all time.
Yeah, which is every
remember-
Affliction Warlock in every expansion ever.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Although like getting rid of some of the lesser dots like the Breath of Manaroth or whatever that one is, that's like the cone in front of you, like that's nice.
Shadow Flame.
Like yeah. Like, and then you don't have to like juggle that one as well.
Yeah.
You're pretty much only juggling like your Affliction,
Your Corruption,
Unstable
your
Affliction,
Bane, and your Unstable
Corruption.
Affliction, yeah.
Yeah, the one thing I'll mention here is the biggest change to Warlock isn't actually a class change. Like obviously you get Gateway and you get some cool like flavorful, splashy, powerful stuff, and you can cast while moving. But the biggest change to Affliction is a change to all the dots, which is Pandemic. So in Cata, Pandemic, you probably, if you played any dot class, you'll know if you refresh your dot like before the last tick, it just adds on to the duration, so you don't like have to worry too much about clipping. In MOP, that's extended to 50% of the duration of the dot. So it's not just the last tick, it's the whole second half. So if you just press like Corruption twice instantly, you'll get 150% duration. So that's actually it seems like a small thing, but it's actually really big for snapshotting. So if you get like a huge proc, you aren't punished as much for re-upping your dots to snapshot that thing in there. So
is that how it works? I for some reason I interpreted it wrong. I thought the 50% part, I thought it was like 50% or less in terms of like if you cast, your Corruption lasts 15 seconds or whatever. My thought was you want to cast it the second time at like the 7-8 second mark to get that 50% of like 7-8 seconds added on to. Actually, no, that doesn't make any sense. So you're saying you double cast it straight away and you get like 22 seconds.
Well, that's how it would work. Basically, what you want to do is cast it at some point in the last half, just whenever in the last half you have the time to. But previously, if you say you got like a really big trinket proc, but you still had 75% of your dot left, if you re-upped it, you'd be losing all that value, whereas now you only lose 25% because you get the second half added on, plus it's all boosted. So it basically just, like, the math is complicated, but what it means is you're going to be playing a lot more around re-upping your dots around procs. So that's actually a pretty big gameplay change. Previously, you would just re-up your dots whenever they were about to run out. And the only thing you'd be worried about snapshotting in like Wrath was your Corruption, and you could just extend it infinitely. But the play pattern is actually a bit different. But I think you are pretty much right that it's not really that much changed, even from like Wrath through to MOP. But to me, as somebody who really loves Affliction Warlock, I like played a huge amount of Affliction and Wrath. Not really so much in Cata because I was healing more, but I think it's really good that it doesn't get changes because that basic model of 3 dots, Shadowbolt, Haunt is just so good that I think it's like, personally, I think Affliction Warlock is like god tier fun, but I know I'm super biased as a Warlock enjoyer. So
Fair enough. Mates, let me ask though about Demonology Warlock. Now, it seems to get a lot of love in terms of like a lot of curiosity. A lot of people are like demonology curious, but I don't want to comment on it too much because I'm just weirdly predisposed to hating demonology. I fucking hate the model. You know, people in SOD commented it on. Well, you know, when you form into the demon, like there are a lot of people out there who don't like that character model. I don't like it.
you don't like Shadow the Hedgehog? What do
No,
you-
I fucking hate it.
Yes.
And so I'm just not into demonology, but like, you know, it is a popular spec. It's very popular in retail. Everyone loves Hand of Gul'dan and fucking all that shit. I mean, I need to talk to someone. Just Double, you're probably the person. Tell me why I'm insane. Is demonology exciting in any way in Mob?
It is incredibly exciting. Sorry, I'm not Double.
No, go, Naismith.
No, go
Pick it up.
ahead.
Go.
Take it away.
No, we've touched on it a little bit, but like some of the obscene trinkets that you can get in like Throne of Thunder really go well with a Demonology Warlock. Specifically, oh God, what is it? Unerring Vision of Lei Shen. I want to say it's like this. It is this a trinket that gives you 100% chance to crit for like 6 seconds. As a Demonology Warlock, what you can do is like pop every single cooldown when that happens, and you can hit like your Doom, and when Doom critically hits, it spawns a little imp. So you can just do some really nutty DPS when that thing procs. It's a lot of fun to do. But outside of that niche situation, Demonology does so much fucking AoE damage. It is so much fun on specific fights. Amber Shaper, I think, is who it is in Heart of Fear, where you need as much DPS damage as possible. No, it's not Amber Shaper. It's someone else. It's the fourth boss. I can't remember the name anymore. But you can like pop your talent that gives you a second pet, and then your Felguard comes out and just instantly starts doing its little twirly attack as well. It's you can, if you like seeing giant numbers or just a lot of numbers on your screen, Demonology can be a ton of fun.
All right. Well, I'll slot it in the great tier. Does that line up with your understanding, Double? You're a Warlock enthusiast.
Yeah, I think it's fun. Also, you just reminded me with your pet comment there. Every spec of Warlock, if you don't like your pet, if you don't like pet management, you can take a talent that will sack your pet. So every spec has access to that. If you
Oh,
don't like your
I
pet,
love it.
If you're
I
not
love it.
Destro, it's not very good.
yeah, it's you do sacrifice some damage on non-destro, but it's still like if you just hate your pet, if you're one of the pet hater people,
Yep.
and you're if you're not like going for 99s or whatever, you can do it and it's fine. That's a little bit of a bonus there. Also for Demonology is the spec that's changed the most. It's like basically completely redesigned. Affliction and Destro are very similar to previous. They just have a little bit of Builder's
Destro has
Thunder
changed a
extra
bit.
stuff in there with shards, but Demo is like completely different. It goes from a spec where like your metamorphosis is just a cooldown and your whole spec is designed around getting the most value of your demonology window every 2 minutes. Whereas in Mob, the spec is like you build up demonic fury, which is like your rage resource, and then you swap into metamorphosis, which is just like a stance thing basically. And then once you're in that, you like consume all that rage to do damage, and then you swap back into normal form. So it's just the spec works like completely differently, and I think it's a good. I think that Demo and Kata is like really degenerate, especially with all the stupid mastery stuff that goes on. And I think it's probably the most improved spec.
I
I'm
agree.
hoping
So
that like
go,
all.
Wacklo. No, you go, Wacklo. Sorry, mate.
I was just gonna say, I hope all that like stupid not like necessarily mastery, but like all the pre-pull shit from Kata, I hope is completely out the door. Because if they don't make any changes, it won't be until like Legion or something.
I was going to say, I agree with you, Double, that Demonology has changed a shitload, and that's great to see for Demonology fans. I understand where you're coming from, but I balked at just you saying destruction and affliction haven't changed that much. I think destruction has changed as much as demonology. It's just a bit more, like, slightly more subtle. I don't know, but like, I know you can make the argument that when I, you know, obviously I'm going to say, oh, the burning ember system, but like, effectively that's just soul shard. So I get if you like, mate, it's the same shit in a different dress. Like, I get that, but it's still so different in terms of the way that you work with shadow burn and fucking, you know, chaos bolt and everything, the build, the spend, and I don't know. I love Destro. So the reason I'm going to fucking, sorry, you go, Naismith.
I was gonna say, don't forget, like, using Rain of Fire as just a basic, like,
Oh.
like a builder.
Yeah, not having to
Like,
channel
it's-
it. Oh, so good.
Yeah.
So I'm going to gush over Destro Lock because this is the class that I've picked for my PvP main. And, you know, not a shock to anyone. It's like, oh, fucking, there you go, Josh. Just pick one of the fucking hardest hitting classes. You know, meta, you fucking idiot. In all honesty, and, you know, I don't care if people believe me or not, I don't care about the numbers. I care about the feel. And I've played every fucking spec, and Destro Warlock felt like the most fun. When I pressed buttons, I got the most dopamine back. And here's the funny, people fucking will go, oh, you're just saying that because of Chaos Bolt. Chaos Bolt's actually my least fun button to press. I'm not a big Chaos Bolt stand. I know it hits like a fucking truck, and obviously you're going to fucking destroy people with it. I actually really, like Naismith said, I take the smaller things more into consideration, where like the way in which Rain of Fire works now, and how if you've got an immolate up on the target, that Rain of Fire hits harder or whatever. It's one of the two, but you know what I mean. And like, you can just with an at cursor macro, the way in which your mana recharges, how you've almost got infinite mana. It's a bit weird, but like, just being able to click that Rain of Fire around the map and just fucking tag mobs. Like, that's how your AoE is. I'm just fucking clicking a Rain of Fire everywhere, grouping them all up, and then doing your fucking Fire and Brimstone or whatever it's called and AoEing everything down. Feels amazing. And that being like toggleable. Why can't I speak English today? Toggleable. Feels really cool. Conflagrate. Fucking just feels really, really fun, particularly when you've got the glyph that's like you don't need the immolate up in order to slow the target. Just fucking whack a fucking conflagrate on something from 40 yards away and it's slowed by 50% or whatever instantly. Feels fucking fantastic. Howl of Terror. I don't know how the Warlock class designer or whatever back in the day somehow convinced everyone else to allow Howl of Terror to be instant on a 40-second cooldown. It feels like cheating. I use that on cooldown now as my main fear. I presume other Warlocks do. I don't know if they do. I'm not hitting fear. I'm hitting Howl of Terror on fucking everything. And fear is now my backup fear, if that makes sense. It all feels so good. Shadowburn is one of the most satisfying fucking buttons to press in the game. It is so, like, it's so funny that you can't use it until they get to, I mean, it's by design, I guess. You can't use it until they get to 20% or less, but it takes 25% of a mob's health off. It's so fucking satisfying. Chaos Bolt is like the fifth reason why I would list that Destro Warlocks are fun. Like, I just don't give a fuck about the big numbers. I give a fuck about the feel, and I actually will give a knock to Chaos Bolt. I hate the floatiness of it. I've talked to you guys before about some of my pet peeves with animations. The Chaos Bolt being like a tennis lob over the net fucking irritates me to no end. I hate it. But like, obviously it's a, you know, big damaging ability and part of your rotation, and I get that. But I'm maining Destro Warlock for PvP. This will be my number, because I'm more PvP focused than PvE focused in MoP. This will be my number one character. I've got a dwarf Destro Warlock ready to go. I'm fucking pumped up. It's Destro Warlock and Resto Druid for me in MoP. That's what I've locked into. I'm so excited. I fucking love this spec. I think it's so much more fun than it was in Kata by night and day standards. I'm just gushing here. Double. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, it's all your buttons just feel like super chunky and impactful. It's kind of like Ellie, where it's not like super complicated, but it just feels really good to play. All the buttons feel, and I also do agree with you that Chaos Bolt's kind of like it just looks so dumb to me. The
It's
the new
not
the graphic
satisfying.
for it is, I don't like the new graphic, and the way that like lobs up is just
Oh.
it just looks kind of silly.
It's
So,
I mean, fuck, it's like it is, yeah, obviously the tournament's coming up, so that's why I'll use this analogy. It's like you're at fucking Roland Garros and you know, you've seen someone come into the net and you just fucking try to doof it over the top of them over their head. But it's just the only satisfying part of it is that the thing dies when you hit it. But watching it go out at a just limp dick energy. Sorry, Naismith, go.
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, I'm not really the biggest fan of Chaos Bolt, but I do love Bane when I can have 2 Chaos Bolts go out at once. That to me is the
Oh,
most
Havoc.
satisfying
Havoc,
thing
you
for
mean.
Destro.
Havoc, right?
I feel like the cool thing about Bane, or another cool
Havoc,
thing
yeah.
about Bane, or sorry, Havoc, yeah, the cleave thing is you can shadow burn a full health target with it. If one
Huh?
of them
Oh,
is
yeah, yeah,
low.
yeah. If the one's in execute range, right?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
you get like double execute.
Yeah. Oh, it's great. It's fucking fantastic. I really like it. And that's the thing. I feel like because I'll talk about the class next that I was all locked into main and then changed my mind once I got into the beta. You know, I want my brain to be mildly exercised when I play a class. Like I don't want it to be so press 1, press 2, brain dead. You know, and I know some people would say, well, isn't lock that? You just fucking pressing Chaos Bolt and, you know, that's about it. Like there's a lot more to it than that. And like the interaction with Havoc and like, I think this will really separate the men from the boys. Unfortunately, I'll probably be one of the boys because I won't be able to fucking figure it out. But I'm already seeing the strategy behind how to use Havoc well and watching really good locks, you know, get those double shadow burns off and like, you know, Havoc fucking strategically. It's really cool. I just think it's a class that's like, I really like that it's like, turn on my AoE, fucking immolate everything. Now I'm gonna fucking, you know, conflagrate everything. Turn off my AoE. Double Havoc on these two. Havoc on this target. So I double Chaos Bolt those two because whatever. Like it's just really cool. I think there's a lot of strategy behind it. So hopefully it's fun to play in Battlegrounds. I think PvE is really fun with it. So that'll be cool to see. I'm putting it in S tier for fun. I think it's fun as fuck. What do you guys think?
yeah,
I agree.
Yeah.
I also just a super quick closing thing on Warlock, similar to Holy Paladin, where you have those two playstyles. Warlock, all 3 specs are fun and good, and all 3 specs are very different. So in PvE, you can like swap between them in encounters, and it just adds a little bit of spice, a little bit of variety, and same thing in PvP, right? So that's definitely helpful for the spec where if you want to play DPS and you roll like Ret or something, there's no other options. You just have to play Ret. Whereas with Warlock, all 3 options are fun in their own way, and they're all unique and different. So it adds a little bit of extra value to playing Warlock.
Very good, very good. Guys, lucky last warrior. Just real quick on the Prot Warrior, all I've really got to say is the Prot Warrior seems to be a better performer than perhaps many people will think it is in MOP. You know, it's funny, Prot Warrior always seems to get shit, but it seems to perform despite people thinking that it doesn't. You know, I think, again, looking at some of your tier list, Sug, that you were fucking throwing out there today, you know, people really rate Prot Warrior in MOP. And if you like that style of tanking, super, super mobile, flying all over the map in a relatively reckless fashion, then you'll be fine with your Prot Warrior because it's not like it's a shit tank. Anyone on the Prot Warrior? Anyone played one?
I haven't played one, but like I've never turned one down or away when I'm raid leading. It's just like warriors in MOP bring so much good utility with their the banners that they bring.
Yeah.
That if you have an off tank prot warrior or even a main tank, you're not going to be disappointed. I don't think.
Do you reckon they're fun to play? I can't make my mind up on the Prot Warrior. I'm very ambivalent on it.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like their active mitigation is kind of interesting because you have to choose between like the block and the like absorb. I don't know though. I just haven't played it enough to know. But I played a lot of Prot Warrior and other expansions, and I really love just the basic toolkit of Prot Warrior, leaping around, charging around, the mobility. It just is always a feel good spec, even if the basic rotation is not like super complicated or interesting. I just feel like the class fantasy and the mobility is so nice that it's hard to rate it low.
There you go. I do love double time as well. I feel like that's a good thing to have. Anyone else on the Prot Warrior before we get into the DPS specs? Nope, that's all right. Look, real quick on... I don't want to do Fury too dirty, but just real quick on Fury. Look, get PvP out of the way. Obviously, everyone just says, don't fucking bother. Arms is Arms is one of the best PvP specs out there. Like, you are doing yourself more than a disservice if for some reason you choose to play Fury in Arena or Battlegrounds. Like, why would you do it? There's a PvP spec there that fucking slaps and you're ignoring it. Just like, and it's not like Fury is infinitely more fun or anything. Like, you're effectively doing the same thing, so you might as well pick the one that does the more damage. So outside of that, though, I don't know much about Fury PvE. Will people be playing Fury PvE? Is it, fun, or is everyone just basically going arms if you're any form of a DPS warrior?
You'll go arms for phase 1. Fury, if I'm not wrong, I think it comes online pretty good in Throne of Thunder and especially in Siege.
Is it fun?
Yeah, I think. Yes, very fun. I feel like Fury is always fun.
What about Mop Fury distinguishes it from any other Fury warrior, Wacklow?
I don't think Fury's had any big changes, but Kata Fury is fun.
Right. So if
you're
getting the same thing, if not a bit better, then you're all good.
Yeah, and it becomes viable. Is it good in Throne of Thunder? I've always heard it's good in Siege.
I hear that a lot. I have not seen it personally, so I don't know. Maybe it's a meme, but I think your Bloodthirst has like double crit chance, I think is how it works. So you can get like, once you get enough crit, you can get 100% chance to crit on Bloodthirst, which I think is like a kind of a break point where your rotation starts to feel a lot better. But again, I just have not seen enough of it to really say.
Fury is always so gear dependent, like especially early on, like when you're struggling just to get hit capped sometimes, and you're not going to have enough crit to make it worthwhile.
Let's talk about the big boy. Last cab off the rank. Arms. Look, I mean, search around on YouTube or whatever, guys. You'll have a million things about Arms. It is fucking phenomenal in PvP. Right up there with your Destro Lock, your Subtlety Rogue as one of your best picks if you're a PvP enthusiast. Does perform well by all accounts in PvE as well. I find it very, very, very fun. However, I will say this, like I mentioned before, I was all locked in on Arms Warrior coming into MOP. I was like, yep, Arms Warrior sounds like me. I'm a fucking melee guy. Let's do this. Melee for life. Let's go, go, go. Then I played it on the beta, and don't get me wrong, it is still exceptionally fun. The only reason I chose Warlock over Arms Warrior in the end is for the reason I mentioned, where I didn't feel like my brain was being engaged with the Arms Warrior. Like, it really is, it's I wouldn't call it a 2-button rotation, but like, it really is just charge in, Mortal Strike to build the rage, 2 fucking overpowers because you've gotten that from Mortal Strike, and then maybe weave in your Victory Rush or a Slam, then you're back to Mortals. Like, it's 1 2 2 3 1 2 2 3 1 2 2 3, or you might get more than 2 procs of blood, whatever it's called, and you might get 4 overpowers. So you might be like 1 2 2 2 2 1 2 2. Like, I know that's I'm explaining most classes where you're not hitting that many buttons, but like, there's just all the thought was taken out of what I was doing, and it's just like that simple flowchart of like, is Mortal Strike up? Hit it. Yes. Is Mortal Strike up? No, it's on cooldown. Then hit Overpower. Back to Mortal Strike. Back to Overpower. Back to Mortal Strike. Back to Overpower. Execute. But execute's like 30 rage and expensive in MOP. So you actually like, I'm not hitting execute that often. I'm talking about just leveling, by the way, guys. But like, I really like the mobility is fucking fun. It hits like a truck. I just felt like a bit of a dummy while playing it. So while it was still very fun, and I still put it in S tier fun levels, that's just the little thing why I chose Destro Lock over Warrior. I just didn't feel like my brain was being tickled. Does that resonate with anyone, or am I just sounding like a fucking idiot?
Yeah, I definitely I'm a little bit of a warrior hater post rage changes. I think warriors super fun with like the old rage and the old like heroic strike and cleave and stuff like that. Even though even like those forms of warrior aren't that really that complicated either. They're kind of just like 2 buttons, but there's just something about the feeling of that old design that's really good. So I just haven't played that much warrior in later expansions. I don't know if anybody else here has more experience.
Naismith, you going to say something?
I was just going to say, we had back in MOP, one of our best melee DPS was a arms warrior, and he loved it, but it's just never a spec that has really been that fun to me. Like if I'm gonna be playing warrior, I'm probably just gonna be doing prod.
Right. Well, this is again one of those specs. I mean, again, I don't want to speak out of school. I'm happy to be proven wrong if anyone wants to write in and tell me I'm a fucking idiot for saying this. But again, back to specs that perform well when poorly driven. Like, I feel like a fucking idiot could do really well on an arms warrior. I don't know. That's just the impression I get.
Yeah, it's pretty simple. The one thing I'll say for arms though is that there's almost nothing in the game as satisfying as popping all your cooldowns, popping your bloodbath, and then like leaping into Bladestorm, a giant AoE pack. It's just that common. Even in Kata, like the same thing is true, right? Just jumping in and
Yeah.
Bladestorming and just doing insane burst AoE. Like you do, it does feel really good to do that. So that's one huge upside to playing Arms Warrior. And its cleave is really insane, which is nice.
All of the buttons that you don't get to spam, that you're not pressing that often, are super fun to press. Bladestorm, Heroic Leap, all that shit that have like 30, 60-second cooldowns, super satisfying. But the buttons you're spamming, like I said, they hit hard and that's great, but I'm just not like, you turn into a drone. 1, 2, 2, 1, 2, 2. I don't know, maybe this is me. But anyway, guys, that's the rankings done. Let's the last question would kind of be, I haven't put anything in trash and I haven't put anything in God tier. I should have put, here's what I'm gonna do. Shout me down if I'm wrong. I'm gonna put Destro Lock in God in S plus for funsies. Does anyone disagree with that?
You're driving the car. It's your tier list.
All right.
You can,
no, but
if you want to put Destro in God tier,
it's being built by you guys.
I think Miss is so, like, the class design is good enough that you could honestly make an argument for any of these specs to be in God tier. I think that, like, there's going to be a sizable minority of people who love every single one of these specs, and I don't think any of them are, like, clunky or bad. There's no, like, TBC Warlock where it's literally just Shadow Bolt, where, like, 95% of people are not going to like that very much. I think everything is, like, well enough designed that make an argument.
Well, here's the question I'll ask all four, or I'll ask all three of you. Sinner, I'm not sure if you've got, you'll tell me if you've got enough MOP experience to be able to weigh in on this. Double, I'll start with you. Tell me the 3 specs that you're physically, like, upset, you're viscerally offended that I haven't put in God tier for fun.
I would say Affliction Warlock. Personally, I would say I think Brewmaster's actually up there.
Okay.
And then I also think well, it's so hard with the healers. I'm so biased. I just want to put every healer in God tier, but maybe maybe Mistweaver. I feel like Mistweaver is the one that a lot of healer players are going to try and just kind of like fall in love with and have a lot of fun on, because it's kind of different. It's new, and there's a lot of play to it. So,
all right, I'll tell you what. If you get any support from the others, I'll shift them into God tier. Wacklow, what are your 3 specs that you're offended I didn't put in S plus for fun?
probably Mistweaver, Holy, Priest, and I don't know if I have a third I'd put in S. I'd put Arcane in trash. How's that?
Yeah, is that a universal? I haven't put anything in trash. Does anything deserve to be trash? Because I'm so caught up in everything's fun in MOP, but is there something that we can decidedly say this is fucking dog shit and no one should ever play it because it's not fun? Arcane, Wacklow,
MOP is when you get Rune of Power, right? Like,
Yes.
And it's,
Yeah.
yeah, all mage specs that use Rune of Power in trash, please.
Yeah, Fire I think is going to be fun despite Rune of Power, but yeah, Rune of Power makes
Yeah,
Arcane.
you could easily put Arcane down there.
All right, let's put Arcane down there. All right.
Also, Boomkin, just because everybody loves hating on Boomkin.
There
and I
you
think
go.
it's hilarious.
What? So if I've gun to your head, Wacklow, third one, S plus tier for fun.
Probably Subtlety.
Okay,
Looks really fun. I don't have like the IQ to play it, but looks very
fair
fun.
enough. Naismith, give me the 3 specs that you're offended I haven't put in the S plus tier for fun.
Demonology Warlock, I
Okay.
think, is a ton of fun. Fuck it, Blood DK. That's what I'm going to be playing. And I don't know, almost any iteration of Monk can be fun. Let's go with the Brewmaster.
All right, let's shift Brewmaster up. It's now got a couple of votes for God tier. Let's do that. So, have I done Demonology dirty? Does it need to be S tier instead of A tier?
Look, I love that one because of like personal reasons, not because of
Yeah.
objective ones. So, like, my vote there shouldn't really count for much.
Double, you can be the arbiter on this one.
I'd sooner put AF up there personally.
Right.
But I'm split. I feel like if you were to make a tier list for like the giga sweaty like players who are it would be like Affliction Lock, Feral, Druid at the top, stuff like that. But I could see all the Warlock specs being up there. Honestly, they're all super good.
All right. Well, I'm going to leave it at that. We've only got one. We've got Combat Rogue living in the average tier. I'm happy to leave him there. And the Hunter, all the Hunter specs, unfortunately, we didn't know anything about, so I've left them in just fucking, C tier. Sinner, mate, anything? Have we done anything right or wrong by these rankings? What do you reckon?
I don't really have an opinion on most of those specs, but one thing I would do want to add is in MOP I remember having add-ons, and I assume it's going to be weak ORs now, for when you should refresh your dot. So Affliction is probably going to feel kind of the same as it did back then. I know whoever it was really likes it. I just feel like it becomes a UI. Look at the UI spec, and it's just not for me.
Fair enough. All right, guys, look, just a couple. I'll let you go soon. Relatively soon. Just a couple of things I want to discuss about MOP in general now that we've covered the classes. And thank you so much for all your input on that. That was a lot of fun. Double, let me just kick you off on the beta. And you said you've been playing the beta with a mate. And, again, following all of Scotty's content religiously about what's being changed with the beta and what might be done. I mean, not that it's a scoop, but I mean, I'll just say that I reached out to Tim, the head of the Classic team, the other day and just sort of said, hey, mate, like, on the alt unfriendliness of MOP, like, what's going on? Has there been, like, much chatter amongst the team about what's going to be done with this one? And, he didn't, like, fucking break any news or anything to me, because I asked him about Modes of Harmony, and I said, mate, are we seriously still doing the account-bound thing for Modes of Harmony in MOP Classic? Like, I didn't push him to not do it, but I was like, has there been any talk about the status of Modes of Harmony and the soulbound status? And he goes, basically, yep, look, we're looking into everything. We are very much so trying to make this version more alt-friendly. So read into that as you will. And he said that the moats is something that they're looking into. So I wouldn't be shocked if we got some form of account-bound change to moats and Spirits of Harmony. They've already done the thing double where, as Scotty pointed out on his latest video, they've put in the new Tome of Flying that, you know, you can just now once you've got a character to 85, sorry, to 90, I should say, and you unlock flying, you can buy a thing that then lets your alts fly at 85, which you couldn't do in original MOP. That's now going to be in MOP Classic. Nobody is going to complain about that. Thank fucking God that we're getting that in the game. Mate, talk about the alt unfriendliness of MOP and any changes you would make, or how you've, you know, received these changes already by Blizzard, and what you think about what they said to me regarding the modes.
Yeah, I think that's a really good sign. I also think there's been a lot of little things in the beta that like the Tome of Flying specifically is the most recent thing that indicate that they are taking it seriously and that they're thinking about the right kinds of the right problems to solve. I think the alt unfriendliness is a little bit overstated. I think a lot of people are like focused on daily questing and reps and all that stuff, and really, like, I know Scotty J's made some videos about this, but like really there's only two that matter for like if you're trying to like sweat your pre-raid or whatever. And even if you don't care about like getting full perfect pre-raid vis and all that stuff, it's really not that big of a deal that you like farm every single rep. A lot of it is more like very optional content, and there's not a huge amount of player power behind it. The modes of harmony, stuff like that, like the quality of life stuff, I think all that's really easy to change, and I think signs are pointing to the fact that they're going to change all that stuff, which is good. I think really the main pain point for alts, from my point of view, is just the legendary quest line. I think that is a very important thing to make a lot easier for alts. I think the reps, like my obviously my like, you know, my wet dream or whatever that's never going to happen is that they just add like war bands into MOP and have everything be account wide. But I think that's probably beyond the scope of what's possible. So I think that definitely they need to make the legendary quest line super accelerated for alts. I think that's the most important thing, because that's like the long-term player power that actually like matters a lot. There's little things here and there, like, you know, making Valor, boosting Valor on your alts once you cap your main character. You know, there's little changes they could do to overall make it alt friendly, and I think they are going to be doing that. So I'm definitely positive, optimistic about that going forward, which is good.
Well, on the warband thing, I mean, I'll read out verbatim what Tim said to me. I don't think Tim will particularly care if I read this one out. I'm not normally in the habit of reading out DMs from devs, but he basically said, look, we definitely want to make aspects of the game more alt-friendly, and addressing reputations or integral items like spirits/motes of harmony is on the docket. So, I mean, that, like I said, that's not breaking news, because that's just them saying, of course, we're talking about this stuff and maybe it'll happen, maybe it won't. But the good piece of news is that, like, it's at the forefront of their mind, and it's fucking, you know, being heavily discussed, and they want to improve MOP Classic over MOP. And Naismith, I'll throw this to you. It's one of those things where I'm like, as a layman, as a fucking average gamer, as a layman, I look at spirits and motes of harmony through the prism of a 2025 gamer and go like, I can't believe these aren't account bound. Is it something we should be pushing for? Or and I said this to Tim, is there some 5D fucking chess maneuver here that I can't see that game devs can to keep them soulbound?
I don't really think so. Like, MOP was, in general, just as has been stated multiple times, and we don't need to go over it, it's just not alt friendly, and the design of it is not alt friendly. So, like, any change they make is probably going to be an improvement for your alts, but like, unless they do wholesale changes, like Double said about like making like the legendary quest easier, like huge portions of your player of like your progression and how you feel more powerful is like getting the meta gem that you get from that, and like that is a not insubstantial amount of work that it takes to get that. Like making that much easier on an alt would be the best part, but I don't know. There's just too many. I don't see a real way out of it.
Yeah, I think if you look at The War Within, and I know, you know, a lot of people don't like retail for good reasons, but I think that if they've learned any lesson from the warband stuff, it's that anything you do to reduce the barrier to making an alt is going to make the game better and make the game healthier and have the player base be larger and happier. I think there's basically no limit to that. The easier you make it to have alts and to like off spec and to play different classes and specs, the better the game is basically always. I don't think there's like, I think that's also true for Classic, basically. Too,
Oh, definitely.
is what I'm getting at.
100%. 100%. Question for, sorry, Wacklow, Sinner, anything more on this?
No, I think the flying change is really good.
Yeah.
I hope they do something with the legendary quests. Like someone else said, don't really care about reps because they're not actually, at least right now, that big of a deal.
Wacklow, I'll get you to kick us off on this one. I believe Scotty intimated in one of his recent videos, and this is where you guys will have played it. You know, I don't even fucking raid, so what do I know? But the intimation has been out there that I think it's the first tier of raiding in MOP is arguably not overly exciting. Is that fair? Like, it's got a couple of amazing raids. Everyone fucking, you know, loses their shit over Siege of Orgrimmar and Throne of Thunder. That's all great. Is the first raid tier meh in MOP, or is it actually pretty good?
It's an above average raid tier that is compared constantly to the better raids that came after it.
Fair enough. Wacklow, do you agree with that?
I think we'll find out when it comes. Like going into Kata, everyone said, yeah, the first tier's whatever, and then Fireland's like one of the best tiers we've ever had. And then Dragon Soul is horrible, and it turns out everyone hated Firelands and everyone loves Dragon Soul. So I'm going to withhold judgment until we're there. Mogu'shan Vaults doesn't have like as good a rep of Throne of Thunder, but
Yeah.
like with a fresh set of eyes all these years on, I just don't want to go in anymore with these. Like it feels like it's happened almost every X-Pack. There's like an unexpected hated raid and an unexpected loved raid.
The thing I'll say about Mogu'shan, or the first tier, is Heart of Fear has some truly irritating fights in it. Specifically, like the Blade Master second fight is not exactly fun. The entire final section of that fight is just like running around trying to dodge shit rather than DPSing the boss. And it's a very irritating fight at times.
Yeah, I will say
it's
that
kind of like it's kind
dungeon-
of like tier 11 with Conclave, where a lot of people like don't really like Alakir and the like council fight, whatever it is before. Heart of Fear is like, it's definitely has some irritating ones in there for that some people like.
All right, guys. So I mean, it sounds like Naismith. You know, as you say, it's. I don't know. I think that I would like to hold on to that you know, it's a good rating tier that just got eclipsed by the others, and so people shit on it because they compare it to what comes later. That's something that's good. As long as I won't be bored if I go in. Not that I will, but if I do a raid.
I also think the difficulty is a little bit lower on average, which, you know, like the super sweaty people who are like grinding private servers forever, like they might not like it, and some people might, you know, like people hated like, you know, Nax and Wrath, but I think having an easier first tier is actually really healthy for the game and the population, and you know, people who are coming back and stuff like that to get back into raiding. I think it's good to have the first tier be a little bit more accessible.
Tell me, this is my last question for the day, guys, and I'll let you all go soon after this. So I just want to throw this out there, and we'll explore this maybe in podcasts to come. But Mr. Pandaria is generally considered like, tell me if it's fair to say this, you know, the PvP expansion. Oh my god, they fucking nailed it with the class balance and all that shit. PvP has never been in a better spot than it was in Mr. Pandaria, and now it's coming. Here we are. PvP enthusiasts rejoice. We got a PvP video game for you. It's going to be fucking great. My question is, in the 2025 environment where it's becoming more and more obvious to me that people don't really, like, I'm not this person because I love PvP, but people don't really give a fuck about PvP. WoW game, it's cool to say you like PvP in WoW, but you really don't. You know, a lot of people don't engage with it. The people that do engage with it are kind of weird with it at times. See the rank grinding going on in Anniversary Realms at the moment, you know, just sort of doing everything you can to not play the game in order to rank. But like, there is such a small percentage of World of Warcraft players out there that actually genuinely enjoy logging on and fighting other players, like proper, like, hey, our team versus your team, let's sit down and rock and roll and see who wins. Not many people want to do that. PvE is the thing. Everyone wants to pass. That's why people play the game. They play the game to fucking either make or buy gold and all these reasons to log on and play World of Warcraft. PvP is very low on the totem pole. Most people don't enjoy it. So, when the expansion comes out where PvP's never been better, is that going to mean anything? Are we going to see this like renaissance of PvP enjoyment through MoP Classic, or is it not going to fucking move the needle at all?
I think it'll move the needle a good amount. I mean, in TBC, it was definitely a minority of people who PvP. When I say PvP, I really just mean Arena, which is the only PvP I do, except for the BGs I do to get gear for Arena. But it was really noticeable that there was a drop-off to Wrath and then a huge drop-off again to Kata. So even if we get to like TBC levels of participation in Arena, it would be a huge, huge step up. And I think we're going to get that. One, because participation, I think, will go up because of the rep, but also I think we'll just have a much bigger player base for this expansion than we did for Kata.
How about you, other guys?
Yeah, I agree with what Waklo said. I think there's a decent minority of players who actually play the game exclusively for Arena. And I think that a lot of those players did like come back. Like there's some content creators and stuff like that that did TBC and Wrath to a lesser extent. I think there's some stuff that I think Blizzard, again, they just don't prioritize it as much, which is understandable because it's a smaller population. But I think that I think a lot of I think MoP has such a good reputation and it's so like remembered so fondly by PvP players that we could potentially see a lot of those players coming back and a lot of new players coming back as well to MoP. So my hopium is that PvP will be more alive than ever in MoP, but we'll have to see. And I do think some like you're saying with the alt friendly changes for PvE, I think some of that for PvP could be nice too, where you know, PvP players tend to be kind of like ADHD, and if there's any barrier, they just kind of quit and go play a different game. So I think for the arena players, making it a little bit easier for them to get into arenas would help with that somewhat. I don't know what that actually means. I'm not a PvP Andy, so I'm not the best person to talk about that. But yeah, I'm definitely on the hopium train for MoP PvP.
Yeah, me too. And just one more thing on it. Because now PvP like power, PvP gear works a little differently in MoP, where now it's just essentially regular gear with PvP stats on top.
Yeah.
Instead of gear with stats reallocated to PvP stats.
Right.
There's much, much less of a demand to do PvE content to PvP. There's like a trinket here and there.
Yeah.
But
Which
it's
is good.
really like way more viable
Yeah.
now to just log in, do your arena, and you have all the gear you need.
My weird take on the new PvP power stat, and tell me if I'm wrong on this, Wacklow. The vibe I'm getting from what I've taken in is that it's kind of a nothing burger. Like resilience is still something to keep your eye on. Focus on that. PvP power is a weird new stat that fucking kind of doesn't really factor in that much. Am I way off base?
You mean like how you itemize? Well,
Yeah, people are like, don't
PvP
itemize for PvP power. Like it's not that big of a deal.
But there is no itemization in PvP in MoP. You just wear full PvP gear. Mostly.
Right. But can't you still like
maybe
gem
like
or
I don't know if you
enchant
can
for
reforge.
it? I think you can gem and
Can you
you can gem for it, can't you?
Oh, you can.
Yeah, you can gem for it. I don't think you can reforge it. I might be wrong. But the way PvP gear works is power and resilience doesn't take a secondary stat slot away. So you still get double, like you can still get like crit haste and then PvP power and PvP resilience, which is a change And that makes the specs just like feel better in PvP because you still get as much secondary stat. So you're not like starved for haste or crit or mastery or whatever, which is nice. But I think the single change they could do to PvP that would be like the biggest for retaining those PvP specific players is finding a way to ensure that you don't wear PvE gear in arenas, or like RBGs. Like just have it be that you could disable PvE gear. You could do any kind of change that makes it so that you don't have to raid to PvP.
They
competitively
appear nude if they
would
dare.
be huge.
They appear nude if they dare wear PvE gear in there.
Yeah.
Oh dear, Naismith, were you going to say something before? Sorry.
No, I am like every point I would have brought up has already been covered.
All right, all good, all good. Well, look, guys, we'll wind it up there. I think that's a good point. Thank you so much for all of your time. That was a long one today. You guys have been fucking brilliant. You know, we'll be covering more MOP coming up, guys. Like I said, I am genuinely excited for this. I am all in on MOP. You know, I stopped playing SOD about 4 months ago. I have spent the last 4 months, like I said, in MOP preparation mode. I've gotten all my classes up to 85. It's like, you know, fucking what, 7 or 8 classes I've got up there. I'm all set up. I've spent the last 2 weeks getting all my professions in line. And I'm weird in that, like, 'cause I don't have that much money. I've only got 10,000 gold. I'm doing everything au naturel in that. So I've set up, I've leveled like 6 professions over the last 2 weeks. And I have organically gathered everything myself. I haven't bought a fucking thing off the auction house. So imagine the time commitment double if you're like, all right, I'm going to set this guy up with leatherworking and skinning, and I'm going to set this guy up with fucking blacksmithing and jewel crafting. And I've done it all and gathered it all myself over many, many hours.
Yeah, you've got the fully ethical, free range,
100%.
all natural,
100%.
leatherworking.
And it saved me a fuckload of money. And I'm like, people would roll their eyes at the time commitment. But like, guys, it's given me something I've had nothing to do in game. It gave me something to do. I've been really happy just plodding along and working towards something in the game. But anyway, I'm really excited. Yeah, sorry, Naismith, you going to say?
That's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I have 6 85s right now, and
Perfect.
I've just leveled all the professions myself. Like,
all right.
It's been a weird experience.
Hardest question of the day to finish you on, Naismith, that everyone will get. Day 1, MOP launch. What are you playing? What are you diving in on fucking hard from the get-go? What's the class and spec?
It's going to be a Blood DK and a Warlock. That way I can have an Herbalist, so I can... I want to sell some... the Dark Moon cards.
All right.
Because I have a bunch of Inscription.
All right. So maining the Blood DK mostly.
Yep.
Very good. Wacklow, day 1, MOP, fucking minute 1. What are you diving in on?
Minute 1 Mage, but Destrolock also probably week 1.
All right. All right. Double.
I'm going to be mating this priest, I think, and then probably a shaman second. But honestly, like doing this podcast, I'm like, in the back of my mind, I'm like, oh, I want to level a warlock, you know?
Oh, do it. Do it.
The FOMO is like, it's catching up to me. I have to, well, I'm going to try to have like all the healers at max. So I can do more content on healer stuff. But I don't know. I'm feeling definitely feeling the warlock FOMO right now pretty hard.
Do the lock thing. It's so good. Sinner, how about you, mate? Day 1, minute 1. The gates of MOP open. Fucking, what are you running in on?
Elemental.
That's the one. I'll just say that the only specs that I have real interest in that I will be playing for MOP are the following: Destruction Warlock, Resto Druid, Arms Warrior, Prot Paladin, and that's about it, I think. There's like 2 more I'd like to play if I have the time, but I doubt I'll have the time, like a Holy Priest. You've sold me on the Holy Priest double. And probably the last one would be the Unholy DK. But I mean, Unholy DK and Kata and MOP are basically the same thing. But it's really just those 4. It's the Destro Warlock, the Arms Warrior, the Resto Druid, and the Prot Paladin. That's likely all I'll be spending time on in MOP, and mainly just the Destro Warlock and the fucking Resto Druid. But I'm excited, guys. Get pumped up. Mop is just around the corner, like I said. I mean, pick your dates. Double, do you think I'm crazy for saying it's 7 or 8 weeks away?
Yeah, I think you're crazy.
All
Not
right.
gonna lie.
All right. When do you think
what
it's
I'm
coming?
what I'm hoping for is we get an early pre-patch that will be extended because honestly, pre-patch Dragon Soul is going to be way more fun than 30% Dragon Soul for the 50th week in a row.
All right. Fair enough. Are you going to pick a date? We go closest to the pin.
Man, I don't know. I'm a little bit of a doomer. I think maybe 8 weeks rather than 6 weeks. I don't know.
Wait.
I'm just
Eight weeks
guessing.
from now. That's what I'm saying.
Then I guess we agree.
There you go. All right. Wacklow, how about you? When do you think this thing is coming?
I have some real life stuff late July, early August, so probably right then.
I honestly think August is, personally, I'm like, there's zero fucking chance it's coming as late as August, where it's literally not even mid-May. There's no way they're waiting another 3 odd months for this thing.
Yeah, my real answer would be mid-June pre-patch, mid-July, I think. for the
Naismith,
launch.
how about you?
I actually also have a shitload of stuff coming in early August. It's my wife's 40th birthday, and we're going on vacation, so that will probably be when I go when it drops.
Probably. Sinner, how about you? When do you think it's coming?
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow? Yeah, fucking lock it in. Tomorrow, boys. We'll all jump in. All right, guys. Look, thank you so much. Let me plug Double, your channel. Everyone go and watch Double Zug's content. If you are playing Mob Classic and you're not watching his YouTube channel, you're doing it wrong, quite frankly. Double, please tell us what's in the pipeline, what's coming, mate. Plug away.
Yeah, so I'm just doing some hype content to try to get more people excited, but my big thing is I'm going to be doing in-depth guides for every single healer spec, and I'm doing a bunch of research and doing all the math and stuff like that, which I'm having fun with, and I'm trying to get those out like before pre-patch, ideally before launch, so should be coming.
Very good. Everyone, Double Zug, YouTube, search for it, consume it. Fucking talk to him in the Countdown Discord, in his Discord. It's all happening. He's accessible. I love it. Wacklow, mates, any guilds to shout out? Anyone to shout out?
No, I'm running with a new group of guys because all of my normal groups are in hibernation until MOP right now.
Right.
I don't know. Shout out the Knicks.
Shout out the Knicks. I fucking bet they lose the series. I don't want them to, but I'll bet you they choke it away.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be 5-1 Celtics going in, so me and everyone else.
Naismith, mate, any shout outs from you?
Not really. I don't really have any guild at the moment. I'm just looking forward to Mob.
All right. Shout out to your wife for putting up with you sitting on a podcast for 4 hours.
Yeah, and if you noticed, you didn't hear my children this time. We sent them away for this podcast.
Very good. Very good. Sinner, any shout outs?
Shoutouts to the guy helping me in Sod right now.
Very good. What's his
Whatever
name?
His name is. Asani.
There you go. Very good. All right.
Oh wait,
Yep.
Josh, I do have a shout out. Shout out to Blizzard. Give me a beta key.
Yeah, give everyone beta keys. They're doing the thing they always do, where there's fucking barely anyone in there. Let's open the gates, man. Let's do it. All right, guys. We'll wind it up there.